When Shinyenjo gave my job to the new female neighbor, I didn't make a scene, silently packed my bags and applied to join the North China oil exploration team. In my past life, Shinyenjo swapped my job application, and the position went to our new neighbor Zhou Shuiying. After being reborn, when I held that job application form once again, little did she know, subtitles suddenly appeared before her eyes. Tisk tsk. A supporting character remains just that. She's unwittingly paving the way for the female lead. How pitiful. Not only will the application she worked for be handed to the female lead by the male lead, but she'll also spend 30 lonely years after marriage. Truly tragic. Though everything the supporting character does clears the path for the female lead, I can't help but feel sorry for her. I stared blankly at the empty application form in my hands. Just days ago, Shinyenjo had repeatedly warned me not to write my name on the application when I got it. He said my handwriting was terrible and offered to fill it out for me. Oh dear, why aren't we moving? No worries, the male lead can't wait to come get the application form. Tsk. If it were me, I'd fill out that form immediately and hand deliver it. Let that shameless male lead and female lead go to hell. Hey, the one above. Doesn't that mean the female lead Zhou Shuiying won't get the form and can't join the performance troupe? If she can't join, how's she supposed to end up with the male lead Shinyenjo later? So what if she can't join? Don't supporting female characters have rights too? Should they just waste their lives because of these two lunatics? Oh, stop arguing. Look, the supporting female character actually came back. I stared blankly at the empty form in my hands. Male lead, supporting female. What is all this about? So you're saying Shinyenjo will take my application to Zhou Shuiying? I stumbled back in a daze, still numb. I carefully wrote my name on the form, stroke by stroke. By the time I saw Shinyenjo again, I was already standing outside the cultural troops gate. Shinyenjo's face darkened. He was panting heavily, as if he'd chased after me the whole way. Lanhua, where's the form? Shinyenjo reached out toward me. Standing over 6 feet tall with striking features, arched brows and starry eyes, he was undeniably handsome, blessed with good looks and a promising career. His recent promotion last year and imminent higher-level transfer this year proved his exceptional competence. Were it not for our pre-arranged engagement, I'd have long lost the privilege to stand by his side. Once, he occupied every corner of my heart and vision. Supporting female lead, hurry. Submit the form yourself, don't let the male lead handle it. Ha ha ha, hand this in and your life is ruined. The only chance to change my fate, and I'm about to give it away. Sigh. Ugh, why is this toxic supporting character being like this? Hurry up and give the form to the male lead. My sweet, kind heroine Zhou Shuiying needs it to register. Those bizarre words appeared before me again, too. A sharp pain shot through my head as foreign memories came crashing in like a tidal wave. When the pain finally subsided, I realized with a start, I'd been reborn. In my past life, my fiancé Shinyenjo had secretly replaced my name with Zhou Shuiying's on the official employment application, all to help his childhood sweetheart, newly widowed and returned home, secure a position in the cultural troupe. To cover his tracks, the coward even left my window open the night before my supposed first day, leaving me shivering with fever by dawn. The next day, I missed my onboarding because I was running a high fever. Zhou Shuiying, on the other hand, successfully took my spot and joined the cultural troupe. Later, Zhou Shuiying became the troupe's star performer due to her excellent work. In the years Shinyenjo was climbing the ranks, Zhou Shuiying also steadily leveraged his influence, staying by his side with her daughter every step of the way. After failing to join the cultural troupe, I married Shinyenjo, only for him to be transferred within 2 months. At 30, after years of being separated from Shinyenjo more often than not, I finally became pregnant. Our son was frail, sickly from the very beginning. When the boy turned 5, Shinyenjo insisted on providing better education and took him away. I wanted to go with him, but he said both our parents were getting old and asked me to stay home and look after them, suggesting I join him in a few years. But those few years turned into a full 30. I saw one elderly relative after another pass on, and it wasn't until I was almost 50 that I finally reunited with my husband and son. Yet, after all those years of being apart, even though I'm with them now, I still feel like an outsider. Over the years, Zhou Shuiying had always stayed by Shinyenjo's side and took good care of my son. When I returned to Shinyenjo 30 years later, my son only had eyes for his godmother Zhou Shuiying, treating me with nothing but cold politeness and disdain. He even felt embarrassed to be seen walking with me. Just look at godmother and then look at yourself. Can't you stay away from me? She even complained to Shenyanzhou. Dad, I told you to just leave her in the countryside, why did you bring her here? It's so embarrassing, you know. Though Shenyanzhou never said anything, he never went out with me either. Even visiting guests initially mistook me for their housekeeper. Shenyanzhou and his father are cut from the same cloth, their entire world revolves around Zhou Shuiying, though we live under the same roof. They barely speak to me beyond ordering me to cook and clean. Day after day, I watch the poised and graceful Zhou Shuiying sipping tea in my home with utter ease. They even flaunt their relationship openly, with Shenyanzhou accompanying her everywhere. Looking at myself dressed in this coarse, floral-patterned old woman's outfit, how could I not feel ashamed? On my son's wedding day, he actually called Zhou Shuiying mom right in front of everyone. To outsiders, Zhou Shuiying standing beside Shenyanzhou appeared to be my son's real mother. Crushed by my shame, my timidity, my resentment, even my jealousy, I collapsed alone the day I fled my son's wedding. My own son, the one I risked my life to bring into this world, is actually ashamed of me. He wants to abandon me in the countryside to fend for myself, but why? If it weren't for me taking care of those elderly relatives who kept falling ill over the years, how could Shenyanzhou have lived such a peaceful life? If Shenyanzhou hadn't secretly put Zhou Shuiying's name on my promotion application back then, I wouldn't have wasted my entire life stuck in the countryside. If I hadn't fought tooth and nail to give birth to my son, and then meticulously cared for him until he was 5 or 6, where would he get the right to despise and look down on me? And embarrass me? I looked at my hands. Still fair and unblemished, and my eyes slowly hardened with resolve. In this life, whoever wants to be the scapegoat can go right ahead. All I want is to reclaim what's mine, to take it back. 3. I looked down at the application clutched tightly in my hand, then glanced up at Shenyanzhou, who was reaching out to me. I distinctly saw a flicker of displeasure in Shenyanzhou's eyes, but he suppressed it. Orchid, be a good girl. Hand me the form. I instinctively hid the form behind my back, then, under his surprised gaze, quickly handed it to the staff member at the counter. Seeing Shenyanzhou's face change dramatically, I almost couldn't hold back my tears. Thankfully, I got a second chance at life. This time around, I can still make the deadline to submit the form. Only after becoming a full-time employee can I apply to join this oil exploration mission. At this point, I haven't married Shenyanzhou yet. It's not too late for anything. 4. On the way back, Shenyanzhou followed me, his face grim. It wasn't until we got home that I saw a woman outside the gate, anxiously looking up towards us repeatedly. Seeing us return, Zhou Shuiying's face lit up, and she came forward to greet us. Brother Shen, the form. I don't know if Shenyanzhou gave her a look from behind, but I only saw Zhou Shuiying pause for a moment, then simply gave me a reserved nod. Ha 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 ha. Is the supporting character taking over the lead role's script? She actually submitted the form herself. Holy crap. Is the supporting character trying to usurp the main character's position? Well done, supporting actress. The subtitles on the screen suddenly multiplied again. I paused, walked past Zhou Shuiying, and went back into the house. As I closed the courtyard gate, the gaze that had been stubbornly fixed on my back was finally cut off. I stepped into my own room in the familiar courtyard. 5. Locked the door. Say what you will. Those subtitles hit the nail on the head. In my past life, Shenyanzhou deliberately made me catch a cold the day before to prevent me from starting the new job. In my previous life, everything went according to his wishes, but what I got was a lifetime of misery. This time around, I've already submitted my application, and soon I'll be able to apply to go to North China together. I pulled out some stationery and immediately started writing the application. Orchid, dinner's ready. Come out and eat, Shenyanzhou suddenly called out. I snapped back to reality and looked at the door. Shenyanzhou, who never even stepped half a foot into my room, was actually calling me for dinner. It took me a moment to respond with a simple "Oh." I'd like to see what Shenyanzhou is going to pull this time. Outside, Zhou Shuiying had already left. 6. On the square table in the main hall, there were 3 dishes and 1 soup. We finished our meal in silence. After I finished clearing the dishes and returned to the room, he finally followed me in. Lanhua, we need to talk. I remained silent. After a pause, he finally spoke. We're getting married next month. Are you sure you still want to join this song and dance troupe? Aside from having a good voice and singing well, you don't really have any other advantages. Instead of holding on to that spot, wouldn't it be better to give it to someone who truly needs it? What do you think? If I hadn't been reborn, if those subtitles hadn't reminded me, I sneered coldly. I actually believed he had my best interests at heart. Give it to someone in need. Who exactly qualifies as someone in need? So you've been telling me not to fill out the form, just to give it to that so-called someone in need? My rapid-fire questions made Shinyenjo frown. Holy crap, this is the male lead. What kind of shameless protagonist is this? Ugh, author, don't make me sick. Is the male lead seriously this morally bankrupt? Oh no, female side character, don't fall for the PUA. Don't get brainwashed, I'm begging you. Watching the floating subtitles, I couldn't help but curl my lips into a smile. Shinyenjo seemed taken aback that someone as docile as me would dare contradict him. His lips parted slightly, face darkening with displeasure. In our past life, to conceal his failure to submit my application, he left me waiting in the cold all night. 7. Yet ultimately, the opportunity went to Zhou Shuiying, perhaps out of guilt. He took such tender care of me during those 3 days of illness that I was deeply moved. Yet I ended up spending 30 long years repaying that debt. Truth be told, after our son was taken away, how I wish I could have gone to the city with them. I miss Shinyenjo and our son. Countless nights I've longed to be by their side sooner. That longing stretched across 30 years. In those 3 decades, the 3 days Shinyenjo cared for me became the warmest hues of my life, so I'm willing, and quite content, to stay in the countryside. But in the end, I realized, this, it turned out, was an elaborate scam. After waiting 2 days at home, I finally received the official job offer. 8. In the blink of an eye, I resubmitted my application for the North China assignment. The party secretary never expected I'd leave the cushy performing arts troupe for field survey work. Secretary, we've finally shaken off the label of an oil-poor nation. Now's the time for everyone to contribute. I want to do my humble part for our country. Seeing my determination, the secretary approved my application without further delay. They told me I could join the main group in 3 days. Back home, I cleared out most of my belongings from the house. I sold off some books and exam papers. The worthless knickknacks were all thrown away. I don't have many clothes. They all fit into a single bundle. After packing everything up, I grabbed half a cured ham and headed to Master Chen's house at the end of the street, the one who caters banquets. Half a year ago, on the day we picked our wedding date, I'd already come to Master Chen's house and paid half the deposit for the banquet. Master Chen is an excellent cook. I heard his ancestors even served as imperial chefs in the Forbidden City, in my past life, to make sure Shinyenjo and I would have a decent wedding banquet. I immediately booked Chef Chen's services for that day. I even paid for it with my own secretly saved money. Now, I'm here to cancel the reservation. With visible distress in my eyes, I said, Uncle, you know he's getting promoted next month. Who knows what'll happen after that? Seeing my timid and self-doubting demeanor, Master Chen sighed and turned to fetch the money. He tapped his long-stemmed pipe. Better to call it off now then. Never mind, though Master Chen remained silent. Everyone could see the truth plain as day. Despite our engagement these past years, Shinyenjo always prioritized Zhou Shuiying and her mother over me. Everyone's had a glimpse of what's going on. Uncle, you've got to keep this between us today. I'd die of shame if word got out. Master Ching waved me off and headed back inside, carrying the cured pork I'd given him. After leaving Master Chen's place, I gathered every last coin I had on me. 9. After doing the math, I realized my personal savings were meager. The bulk came from the banquet deposit refunded by Master Chen. All combined, it only amounted to a little over 300 yuan. Thankfully, I've now become a regular employee, so my monthly salary will increase by over 10 yuan, since I'll be leaving soon. I decided to splurge on 2 durable outfits from the state-run department store, especially the canvas shoes. Make sure to stock up several pairs. I kept some money on me, hid the rest securely, then headed to the state-run department store on the street. The clothing selection here was actually quite limited. After browsing around, I only picked out 2 Dacron shirts, along with 2 pairs of black trousers and several canvas shoes. When I got home, Shinyenjo had already returned. He frowned at me and asked, "Where have you been? Why are so many things missing from the house? And why are you packing your bags? Where are you going?" Just then, the words floated up again. Wow, is the supporting female character finally waking up? Is she really leaving? Run, girl, run. Why stay and be a mere tool? And seriously, this male lead is such a turn-off. I was about to give up on this, but now I'm curious to see how well the supporting female character thrives after leaving. Let the male lead regret it. I suddenly realized that I could only see these floating subtitles when Shinyenjo was by my side. Maybe this is what the subtitles meant by male lead and female lead roles. Is it because Shinyenjo is the male lead that I'm able to see these? I shook my head and then said, didn't you always complain about the clutter at home? I've cleared out some of it. I pointed at the bundled clothes. These are all worn out. I bought 2 new pieces. Shinyenjo visibly let out a sigh of relief. So you went clothes shopping? Then he murmured to himself, we're getting married next month. You should really buy some new outfits. His words made me pause. Marriage. In this lifetime, marriage is out of the question. As for you, marry whoever you want. In my past life, whether before or after marriage, I always hesitated to buy things for myself, even the clothes on my back. I wore them for years, mending and patching them over and over again. But then, what about Zhou Shuiying, who was always by his side? They're living the high life, dining and wining in style, and they spare no expense when it comes to clothing. No wonder my son looked down on me in our past life. I dressed like some country bumpkin while Zhou Shuiying carried herself like an elegant noblewoman. What child wouldn't be embarrassed by a mother like that? Brother Shen. Zhou Shuiying's voice drifted in from outside. I heard Shinyenjo ushering someone in. Brother. Is sister-in-law here? She's giving me her promotion spot this time. I'm just so grateful. This is a home-raised chicken from our farm. Brought it over to help sister-in-law regain her strength. My brows furrowed as I let out a cold chuckle. Since when did I promise her the full-time position? Over there, Shinyenjo had already ushered the person inside. Zhou Shuiying walked in wearing a floral blouse, her 2 braids neatly tied. The moment she entered, she bowed gratefully toward me. Sis-in-law, I can't thank you enough. Big brother told me you decided to give me the full-time position. I'm so grateful. This is a home-raised chicken from my family. You simply must accept it. Before I could respond, Shinyenjo tugged at my sleeve and pulled me aside. Lanhua, what do you think we should do about this? I looked at him calmly. Do about what? Shinyenjo paused before saying. Shuiying must have misunderstood. She thought you were giving her the full-time position. See? She even came to thank you personally. So, Shinyenjo didn't say anything, but he looked at me with eyes full of anticipation. I found it amusing. So, what are you trying to say? I was determined to make Shinyenjo spell it out himself. Shinyenjo's gaze turned icy. After a long silence, he finally spoke. Look, I know Shuiying misunderstood, but since we're neighbors, to avoid future awkwardness, don't you think you should just give your full-time position to her instead? The moment the words left his mouth, I slapped him hard across the face with a resounding crack. Under Shinyenjo's stunned gaze, I walked coldly up to Zhou Shuiying. You think your little good cop bad cop routine will make me hand over my job to you? In your dreams. I hurled the egg she brought right back at her. Get the hell out. A measly chicken in exchange for a government job. You take me for a fool. Wow. The supporting female lead is absolutely slaying. She actually stood her ground. The supporting female lead is so badass. I thought she'd foolishly cave in and give up her position out of embarrassment. The male and female leads are seriously the worst. Zhou Shuiying probably never expected me to tear off all pretense of cordiality so ruthlessly. Her expression changed instantly. Covering her mouth, she cast a pitiful glance at Shinyenjo before fleeing the scene in distress. 10. Shinyenjo tried to leave, but I stopped him in his tracks. I couldn't care less if you give all your belongings to that widow, but if I catch you using my possessions or my professional connections to curry favor again, Shinyenjo, mark my words, you'll live to regret it. At this moment, not a shred of affection remains in my eyes for Shinyenjo. Shinyenjo parted his lips as if to speak, but under my icy gaze, he ultimately fell silent. See, it's not that he's completely ignorant of decency and shame. He simply took advantage of my love for him, my lingering feelings, to act so recklessly. I sneered coldly. I'd just returned to my room when I heard someone at the door, something about Zhou Shuiying being in trouble. By the time I came out, Shinyenjo and the visitor had already rushed off. I didn't dwell on it, instead dividing my money, carefully sewing some into the lining of a thicker coat. The rest I stitched into the padding of another vest. After finishing all that, I finally went out to buy some groceries. Since I'll be leaving soon anyway, I only bought enough food to last these couple days, but when I got home, I found the front door wide open. I thought Shinyenjo had returned, but after scanning the room I saw no one. Instinctively checking my bedroom, I found my carefully packed bundle torn open with clothes scattered everywhere. My heart skipped a beat and my breathing quickened. After searching for quite a while, I finally found those 2 tattered garments in the corner of the floor. Reaching out to feel them, I was relieved to discover the money I'd sewn inside was still there. Still uneasy, I carefully picked at the seams with scissors, only then confirming the money remained intact. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, I realized the new Liberation shoes and clothes I'd bought that afternoon were gone, along with the few dozen yuan I'd left in the bundle. My mind went blank. I put down my things and rushed to Shenyanzhou's room, only to find everything in perfect order, no signs of disturbance whatsoever. Then I remembered how Shenyanzhou had been urgently summoned this afternoon, the unlocked door, and how only my belongings had been rummaged through. The truth suddenly became crystal clear. If it were really a burglar, they wouldn't have just gone through my things alone. Shenyanzhou took my money. Clenching my teeth and fuming with rage, I was about to report to the police when I saw Chef Chen from the village entrance storming into my house with a dark expression. The moment he saw me, he pointed at me speechless for a long while. I froze. Why would Chef Chen come to my place at this hour? Upon asking, I learned that Shenyanzhou had just approached Master Chen to refund my banquet deposit for some urgent matter. I sat down in stunned silence. Master Chen looked at me with exasperated disappointment. I asked young Yanzhou, who said someone fell ill and needed the money for medical treatment, so I deliberately asked again, now that the money's gone, what about your wedding banquet? And you know what they said? They said either postpone the wedding or just go get your marriage certificate and put off the banquet for now. He said you're from a good family, so you wouldn't mind these things. As Master Chen spoke, his chest heaved. There wasn't much else he could say, only that he'd managed to smooth things over for now and told me to figure out the rest myself. With that, he shook his head and walked out. After seeing them off, I sat down in a daze. Master Chen is both skilled at his craft and upright in character. Had it been someone else, the whole neighborhood would have known by the next day. If I were still the person I was in my past life, I'd probably spend the rest of my days unable to face anyone, drowning in their ridicule. Shenyanzhou is truly something else. It must be about Zhou Shuiying again. 10. I couldn't swallow that humiliation. After much thought, I finally got up and went to the police. Since Shenyanzhou acts so recklessly, there's no need for me to cover for him anymore. I was just racking my brain for a good reason to call off the engagement, and wouldn't you know it, he just handed me one on a silver platter. Halfway there, I messed up my hair. Then, with tears streaming down my face, I rushed into the police station. Help, my house has been robbed. Oh my God, all the money is gone. I stumbled in. The duty officer was shocked to hear this. Soon, 2 officers accompanied me back home. Neighbors we met on the way, seeing the police, curiously followed behind us. It was only when I asked that I found out my house had been robbed, and everything I owned was gone. Many people couldn't sit still. They rushed home to check if their money was still there. Meanwhile, I led 2 police officers straight to my room. The clothes scattered on the floor hadn't been tidied up yet. They were all over the place. A crowd of onlookers had gathered outside the door, wiping away tears. I said, the money was perfectly fine when I left for groceries. But this is what I came back to, not just the money inside, but even the clothes and shoes I bought today are gone. Comrade, you must help me. I sat on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, a complete mess. The 2 police officers were quite experienced. They noticed that only my room had been ransacked and that the clothes I'd just bought today were missing. It was clear to them that this had to be an inside job. The moment the police announced their conclusion, the entire neighborhood erupted. An inside job, of all things. So you're saying their family might be targeted too? How could this be happening? Now those who'd rushed home to check their savings had all returned, creating quite a spectacle with crowds packed 3 layers deep outside my door. Just as the murmurs grew louder, Shenyanzhou appeared carrying a child, with Zhou Shuiying following close behind, coming into everyone's view. Normally it wouldn't be a big deal. People might whisper about Shenyanzhou getting close to Zhou Shuiying, but that's all. But now, with something major happening at Shen's home, seeing him walking intimately with another woman was too much for bystanders to ignore. Yanzhou, why are you still out here? Your house was robbed. Get home now. Seriously, go check on things. Lanhua's been crying for ages. What are you still doing out here? The whispers of their neighbors and those ambiguous glances made Shenyanzhou and Zhou Shuiying instinctively put some distance between them. After Zhou Shuiying took the child, Shenyanzhou finally entered the house, surrounded by the crowd. The moment he stepped inside, his brows furrowed. I seized the opportunity, wailing dramatically, and recounted the whole story of our house being robbed. Of course, I made sure to emphasize that even my brand new clothes were stolen by those damn thieves. During this, Shenyanzhou's face kept shifting between pale and flushed. Several times he looked like he wanted to speak, but after seeing the indignant stares of the neighbors, he swallowed his words. Shenyanzhou, looking upset, pulled me aside. Why did you call the police? I took that money. I had an urgent need for it. I froze. What did you say? You took the money. Shenyanzhou nodded, signaling me to lower my voice. I pressed further. What about the clothes and shoes? Why did you take them? Shenyanzhou remained silent for a moment. I noticed Shuiying's clothes were worn out, so I thought. I let out a shriek and shoved Shenyanzhou away. You damned scoundrel. You admit stealing my money for that widow, and now you're giving her my clothes too. Shenyanzhou's face turned ashen as he moved to cover my mouth. Keep your voice down. I went to the police precisely to make a big deal out of this, so why would I listen to him? I pushed him away again and rushed towards Zhou Shuiying's house, yelling as I ran, oh my god, you gave my money to a widow, and you even moved my clothes and shoes over here. Zhou Shuiying, get out here. I kicked open Zhou Shuiying's front door and barged straight into her room. By the time the neighbors and Shenyanzhou caught up, I'd already turned Zhou Shuiying's room upside down, clothes strewn everywhere. Brother Shen. Zhou Shuiying had initially tried to stop me when she saw me rummaging through her things the moment I entered. Spotting Shenyanzhou approaching from behind, she went limp and collapsed. Shenyanzhou swiftly caught her in his arms. Such indecent behavior in broad daylight. Ignoring their commotion, I quickly rummaged through her wardrobe and found the shirt I'd bought along with new shoes by the bed. Seeing this wasn't enough to stop me, I flung my clothes and shoes at Shenyanzhou's feet while yanking open her dresser drawer. Shenyanzhou, you've got some nerve. You actually gave my clothes to this widow. Where's my money? Give it back. As I shouted, I violently pulled out the drawer. With a loud crash, bills came fluttering out from the overturned compartment. Zhou Shuiying couldn't pretend to be reserved any longer. She lunged forward, trying to snatch the money from me. Stop it, that's my money, mine, Orchid, stop it. Shenyanzhou tried to come help, but he was quickly held back by the quick-witted neighbors. Soon, the two police officers who had been following finally pushed through the crowd and rushed in. Stop, what do you think you're doing? Shenyanzhou, Zhou Shuiying, and I were taken to the police station, right in front of everyone. The whole thing was cleared up pretty quickly. My place hadn't been robbed. Shenyanzhou had taken all my money and given it to Zhou Shuiying. Shenyanzhou even took my clothes and shoes to give to Zhou Shuiying. I still remember when the police asked Shen why he took my money without consulting me. He self-righteously claimed Zhou's child had an emergency and he didn't think twice, but police hospital records showed Zhou's child only had a common cold that didn't require anywhere near that much money. Shenyanzhou refused to believe it, insisting that according to Zhou Shuiying, the child had a chronic condition requiring long-term nutritional support and medical care, which would cost a considerable amount. It wasn't until the police presented the hospital records to Shenyanzhou that he finally fell completely silent. Since Shenyanzhou and I weren't married, his taking my money could be treated as either a minor issue or a serious offense. It all depended on whether I chose to hold him accountable. That evening, Shenyanzhou stayed at the police station while I went home alone. Throughout the night, neighbors, the village chief, and Shenyanzhou's parents came knocking one after another. Their message was unanimous. They all urged me to drop the matter. I was persuaded by everyone to drop the charges against Shenyanzhou. However, I must break off our engagement, and Shenyanzhou must compensate me for all my losses. Initially, Shenyanzhou's parents disagreed, feeling that since I was about to marry Shenyanzhou, there was no need to make such a fuss over such a minor issue. I remained silent, letting them talk themselves hoarse without responding. Left with no choice, they finally drafted a termination agreement and reimbursed me for my ruined clothes, shoes, and the money Shenyanzhou had taken from me. Only then did I agree to accompany them to the police station the next day. That evening, I packed my belongings and checked into a hotel directly. Passing by Zhou Shuiying's house, I noticed all the lights were off. The place was pitch black. A neighbor scoffed and told me dismissively that Zhou Shuiying had rushed off with her child shortly after returning home that afternoon. The next day, I went to the police station with Shenyanzhou's parents and the village chief. The matter was classified as a family affair, and Shenyanzhou was free to go. After signing the documents, I stepped outside to find Shenyanzhou waiting alone, his parents already gone. He looked at me with unspoken words in his eyes. From his expression, it seemed he'd already learned about the broken engagement between us. Orchid, I'm sorry. Shenyanzhou lowered his head, genuinely apologizing to me for the very first time, but I wasn't having it. In my previous life, I spent an entire lifetime yet I couldn't even earn a kind word from him or our son. This time, I wouldn't let myself be entangled with him ever again. It's quite ironic, actually, that day, he rummaged through my belongings to get money for Zhou Shuiying, leaving me absolutely nothing. Yet, the money I found in Zhou Shuiying's drawer looked to be a good 700 or 800. It seems Shen Yanzhou must have been giving all his monthly earnings to Zhou Shuiying, down to the last penny. I wonder how he'll feel when he finds out that Zhou Shuiying, who he always thought was so pathetic and helpless and needed looking after, has actually been deceiving him all along. Shen Yanzhou followed me from the police station all the way to the hotel. He even stayed outside my door that night, wanting to talk, but I had nothing to say. In this lifetime, cutting ties with Shen Yanzhou is the greatest blessing I could ask for. The next day, I carried my bundle to the assembly point where the main contingent gathered. This oil exploration team numbered over 1,200 strong, under the organization's leadership. We deployed nationwide to conduct petroleum surveys across the 200-plus square kilometer zone designated by higher authorities. Our unit consisted of 30-some members. After 7 or 8 days on the road, everyone finally arrived at the designated location for this mission. As soon as we got there, everyone grabbed their drilling rigs and tools and followed the team leader, scrambling all over the place. Yet, more often than not, the places we explored yielded nothing. Forget oil, we couldn't even strike a single water well. After 4 long years of this, we finally discovered an oil field in the North China region. Following the one in northeast China, my comrades and I embraced, tears streaming down our faces, as black oil gushed from the drill. After 4 years, we finally delivered on our promise. That year, our story made headlines in all the major newspapers. All the hardships and efforts from those years finally paid off. Not just us, but the entire nation shares this immense pride. When I returned, 5 years had already passed. This year, I'm preparing to hold our wedding with my fiance in my hometown. My past misfortune in love never stopped me from loving again. On the contrary, I understand love as a balance between equals. I will carry this with me for the rest of my life. Love others, but love yourself too. If you love someone to the point of losing yourself, becoming timid and weak, and losing the ability to live independently, then, no matter who it is, they'll look down on you. Shen Yanzhou, bonus chapter. It was only when the orchid started acting up that I realized how terribly wrong I had been all along. Zhou Shuiying and the child, whom I once believed needed my help, had been deceiving me all this time. When the police laid out the hospital's records in front of me, I was mortified when everyone looked at me with such disappointment, wishing I'd done better. I thought Zhou Shuiying needed help, so I gave her my entire monthly salary. I thought the child had a chronic illness, so I went above and beyond to help her. I thought Lan Hua loved me, so I acted without restraint. But when I remembered the hundreds of yuan that had fallen out of Zhou Shuiying's drawer, I wanted to slap myself silly, or so I thought. Lan Hua broke off our engagement, just when I thought she'd never leave me, that she'd love me forever. I waited at the hotel all day, convinced that Lan Hua would forgive me once I acknowledged my mistakes. For 3 days I kept vigil outside the hotel, but Lan Hua never appeared. Only later did I learn she'd actually left the very next day after checking in. When I went to the cultural troupe, I discovered Lan Hua had already requested a transfer, but no one would tell me where they'd gone. People looked at me strangely. Some young wives and sisters-in-law would even spit in disgust when they saw me. I knew everyone disapproved of the awful things I'd done, and I knew I was wrong, so, as I said, Shen Yanzhou would take my application and give it to Zhou Shuiying. But for 5 whole years, she was completely out of touch. During these 5 years, my parents introduced me to a few potential partners, but I turned them all down. My career hasn't really taken off either. The transfer that was meant for me became indefinitely postponed after that incident. Then one day, I saw Lan Hua in the newspaper. Though it was just a profile, I recognized her instantly. She was the same, yet different. She'd grown darker and lost her former chic, yet the proud glow on her radiant face made her shine from within. The next time I saw Lan Hua was at her wedding. Sitting at the banquet, I watched the scarlet bridal flower pinned to her chest, watching her walk step by step toward her husband. Suddenly, none of this felt right. In a daze, I seemed to see the scene of Orchid and me getting married, seeing her bearing and raising our children together. I reached out to grasp that fleeting dream, only to find it vanishing the moment my fingers extended. The happiness that should have been mine shattered into fragments. The end. Story 2. In my childhood, I fought with stray dogs for food. When I was nearly starving to death, a young servant shared half a steamed bun with me. To repay his kindness, I disguised myself as a boy and stayed by his side as a servant. This man was once the most noble crown prince of the empire. Overnight, he fell into the dust. Humiliated and trampled by his sworn enemy, later, he became the mad emperor feared by all, yet on a snowy night, he took his own life, pleading deliriously before death, "Yunling, don't look at me, I'm so filthy." When I opened my eyes again, time had rewound 20 years, the imperial tutor harbors wolfish ambitions, the general eyes covetously, and the imperial brother plots treachery. Only the young prince remains innocent and pure, completely unaware, in this lifetime. I came only to protect him. 1. With so many of His Majesty's favored guests, I wonder if he still remembers me. Before the words had even faded, another head rolled to the ground. I've heard many such unpleasant words today. I wiped the blood from the blade and pursed my lips as I looked at Xiaoqi on the high seat, clad in his raven-black cloak. His countenance was as cold as snow, tired of chopping. Our eyes met. His expression calm, as if the one being insulted wasn't him. I waved my hand. The next one dragged into the Golden Hall was the deposed emperor. He was once Xiaoqi's most beloved younger brother, yet he betrayed him, humiliated him, and trampled him underfoot. Xiaoxi was forced to his knees, smiling as he looked up. "Your Highness is carrying out the execution with such fanfare. By tomorrow, Your Highness's scandalous reputation will surely spread throughout the capital." My blade presses against his neck. "Shut up." Xiaoxi burst into laughter, his eyes brimming with undisguised malice. "The master hasn't even spoken yet. Why is this dog so excited? What? Are you also one of His Majesty's favored companions?" A vein throbbed violently at my temple. "Raise your hand, first to gouge out those malicious eyes." A hand patted me on the shoulder. Xiaoqi had somehow come down from the high platform. He lifted his eyelids, his tone icy. "I shall personally carve you into 1,000 pieces." Xiaoxi licked his lips as if savoring the taste. "Elder brother truly wields a beauty's blade. Each cut strikes at my very life. However, compared to elder brother, I still prefer calling you Feng Ling." I stared at him, enunciating each word deliberately. "Before that happens, I'll cut out your tongue first." 2. Rain fell at midnight. When I returned, the bloodstains on the jade steps remained vividly fresh. No amount of washing could erase it. Candles burned in the hall as I peeked through a gap in the paper window. Xiaoqi seemed to sense something, looked up, and caught me red-handed. I entered the hall, obediently hanging my head. I threw him into the slums and hired dozens of beggars. "I guarantee he won't die, really. Tomorrow I'll capture him and bring him back for Your Majesty to execute. We absolutely cannot let him die so easily." The voice grew increasingly faint. After a long while, I heard a sigh. He asked, "Then why are you crying?" I stared blankly, raising my brows as tears kept falling. Under the lamplight, this person's cheeks were gaunt, devoid of any color. He endured humiliation and shouldered heavy burdens for 10 years. Now, his body is racked with illness, nearly drained of all vitality. Among all the foul words spoken in the Golden Hall, only one statement wasn't wrong. After today, Xiaoqi's past will spread throughout Shangjing. Everyone will know. In the Spring Breeze Pavilion, there was once a courtesan named Feng Ling. He was the deposed crown prince of old. Now the new emperor. 3. The flamboyant name Feng Ling was deliberately given by Xiaoxi to humiliate him. During Xiaoqi's 100-day celebration, an immortal happened to pass by while wandering the clouds. The immortal said this child bore the countenance of gold and jade, destined for unparalleled nobility. The immortal also gave him a childhood name, Phoenix. Such was the life Xiaoqi was meant to have. He should have been the proudest and brightest little phoenix in the capital. Until that year when he was 17, his younger brother, together with his teacher and closest friend, broke his wings. They conspired to have him deposed, then forged medical records declaring his death from illness, confined him outside the palace to humiliate. That year I was 10, the first time I saw Feng Ling. On New Year's Eve, heavy snow fell, leaving not even wild grass to eat. The Spring Breeze Tower was decorated with lanterns and streamers, while I sat by the wall waiting to die. The aroma wafting from inside made my stomach twist into knots. In the instant I closed my eyes, something hard hit me on the head. I'm too hungry to even curse anymore. Reaching out to grab it, only to find it was half a cold steamed bun. Fearing it might be snatched away, I wolfed it down ravenously. Dear heavens, is there any more? I knelt on the ground, palms pressed together in prayer, kowtowing devoutly. That's all there is. A hoarse voice came from upstairs. I followed the sound and nearly froze in place. In the depths of winter, the boy wore only thin clothing, calmly holding the other half of the steamed bun. Then, this half of the steamed bun hit me on the head, like a bodhisattva statue sinking in quicksand. He could barely take care of himself, yet miraculously made a whole steamed bun appear in my stomach. What was I thinking at that time? The little bodhisattva looks like he's about to die, but he saved me when I was starving to death, so I should repay him in some way. His arms are covered in bruises, as if he's been bullied. I've been wandering since childhood, fighting fiercer than a dog. I thought I could protect him, and indeed I did. Time passed in the blink of an eye, 10 years gone. Now everyone in the palace knows, the new emperor is a madman. By his side, he keeps a mad dog. 4. Yunling, Shaoqi always wakes in terror during thunderstorm nights. Holding the candle, I hastily lift the bed curtain. Your Majesty, I am here. The candlelight flickers as Shaoqi's face turns deathly pale, cold sweat beating at his temples. I clenched his hand, cold and devoid of warmth. Your Majesty, Yunling is here. It's all right now, Your Majesty, I'm here. Shaoqi's panting gradually subsided. He said hoarsely, I dreamed of Duan Changfeng. I used a sword to slowly cut through his neck. He died with his eyes wide open, asking me, wasn't he my closest friend, my dearest friend? Ha, ha ha ha. He laughed until tears nearly streamed down his face. I gently patted his shoulder. Your Majesty has forgotten, the Duan family was already executed to the last man, and the traitor Duan was torn apart by 5 horses. The head was displayed in the Eastern market as a warning to others. All 370 members of the remaining faction and implicated individuals have been executed. Good, good. Shaoqi let out a low chuckle. He coughed up a mouthful of blood, his expression frenzied. I shall have them all executed. I supported his swaying, collapsing figure. He felt as light as a drifting cloud. Yunling, I pledge to follow your Majesty unto death. 5. To celebrate the new emperor's ascension. Nanzhao offered several camellia trees named Zhaodianhong as tribute. They bloom in the snow, their fiery hues blazing with dazzling brilliance. Along with the flowering trees came the fugitive grand tutor, Gu Yan. He was once the teacher Shaoqi respected the most. I don't know what he and Shaoqi were talking about, only knew that after Gu Yan was escorted back to the dungeon by the guards, Shaoqi sat alone in the hall for a long time. So long that night fell. He covered his face and laughed wildly in the darkness. He never shed tears. This demeanor might as well have been weeping. I walked over quietly, letting him clutch the sleeve of my garment, a merciful fairy in the sea of suffering. Unable to grasp fate's capricious hand, he could only hold on to a soft sleeve dangling before him. He is a drifting lone boat, and my sleeve serves as the mooring rope, to pull him ashore. Ailing. He lowered his eyes, his expression hidden in the shadows, indistinct. This emperor wants to eat steamed buns, I said. I'll instruct the imperial kitchen to prepare it. I want to eat what was served at the former Chunfeng restaurant. Your Majesty, I want it now. He stared fixedly at me, with a hint of pleading in his gaze. I remained silent for a long moment before answering, yes, clutching a few steamed buns. I had just stepped past the final palace gate. Just then, a young eunuch from Weiyang Palace came running over in panic. Aunt Yunling, something terrible has happened to His Majesty. 6. In the snowy night, crimson light filled the vision as the palace glow bloomed brilliantly. I sluggishly rolled my eyes. There stood the person who had been coquettishly begging for steamed buns half an hour ago. A dagger was plunged into Shaoqi's chest, blood soaked through the deep snow, like a cold and eerie flame. It was the grandest crimson bloom amidst the snow. I knelt down, reaching out with trembling hands, only to unexpectedly meet those strikingly beautiful eyes. Don't look at me, he spoke in a low voice, almost pleading. Dirty. More blood gushed frantically from my throat, soaking the front of my robe. I asked numbly, are you going to die? He chuckled foolishly. Ailing, aren't you happy for me? That's right. Ever since he was 17, he lived only for revenge. Now that his great vengeance is fulfilled, nothing in this world can keep him any longer. Something cold fell onto my wrist. This was the first time I saw his tears. He didn't cry when humiliated at the Spring Breeze Pavilion, afflicted by illness. Life was worse than death, yet he didn't cry. But before death, he shed a single tear. He said, this is the happiest day I've had in 10 years. It was a tear of overwhelming joy. Before taking my last breath, I heard him murmuring something. It was very faint, yet I heard it clearly. Ailing, everyone is so wicked, but why are you so kind? I closed his eyes that refused to shut even in death. Tears kept falling uncontrollably. You were the only one who gave me a steamed bun. In truth, it was never just about the bun. You gave me so very much. I never told Shaoqi. in my past life, I could live to the age of 10, and he played an indispensable role in that. The Crown Prince is compassionate and benevolent, setting up soup kitchens outside Guangji Gate on the 16th of every month to distribute porridge. That was the day I looked forward to most every month. I could eat my fill without having to beg or fight for it. Thus, my admiration for the Crown Prince far surpassed that for gods or Buddhas. The gods demanded offerings from me, but the prince generously let me eat my fill. He is my deity. Then one day, the porridge stall was gone. Only then did I learn that the Crown Prince had died. I traded half a steamed bun with another beggar for half a white candle. I have no money to offer lamps for him at the temple. I can only light half a candle for him, to slightly illuminate his path of reincarnation. When the candle burns out, I continue begging, scavenging, and wandering, until that snowy night when I was nearly starving to death. Half a steamed bun fell from the sky and hit me on the head, like the wheel of fate turning. I looked up, and the gods glanced down. Divine favor once again descended upon my life. Countless times you've saved me from peril. 7. The most intense red and white intertwine in my vision, a mottled blur. In the snowy night, palace bells toll in unison, the sound of great mourning. My entire body turns icy cold, gradually losing sight and hearing. The essence of my life departed with the person in my arms. In a daze, it seemed someone was cursing angrily. Where did this woman fall from? Protect His Majesty, protect His Majesty, there's an assassin. Someone is trying to assassinate the Crown Prince. The world spun as I collapsed to my knees in disarray. The chaotic sound of footsteps echoed incessantly. Guards surrounded me with their spears raised. Amidst the flashing blades, all I could see were those clear, bright eyes. The little prince, about 10 years old, tilted his head slightly, full of curiosity. You. Why did you fall from the sky? Are you the immortal Mother Queen spoke of? Holding back tears, I whispered softly, yes, I've come for the young prince. 8. I need an identity that could allow me to stay in the imperial palace. By Shaoqi's side, it was currently the 12th year of Jianing. That year, the capital had gone 3 months without rain, leaving thousands of acres of crops in the suburbs nearly withered to death. I remember this drought didn't last long. So I volunteered to pray for rain. I prayed atop the high platform. At the third watch of the night, a heavy downpour came pouring down. The emperor was overjoyed, honored me as a divine maiden, and kept me in the palace to accompany him. I recalled all my past lives and prophesied several events. With this, I suddenly became the emperor's favorite. That day when I left the imperial study, I happened to meet Grand Tutor Gu Yen, who came for discussions. The moment we passed each other, he scolded. Playing the mystic, I raised a brow slightly. How does the Grand Tutor know this isn't real? Gu Yen sneered. Ghosts and gods are nothing but baseless talk. Your Excellency the Divine Maiden, you'd best not let me catch any of your missteps. I let out a cold laugh, my eyes dark with frost. Oh really? Then the Grand Tutor had better have a clear conscience and refrain from wrongdoing. Otherwise, beware of vengeful spirits coming for your life. In the previous life, Gu Yen forged personal letters and colluded with Duan Changfeng, who had just returned from the border, to falsely accuse your highness of treason. This provoked the emperor's wrath, leading to your highness being deposed as crown prince. Everything Gu Yen did was paving the way for Xiaozhe. Xiaozhe's birth mother was a beauty presented by Nanzhao. In his youth, Gu Yen lived as a guest in Nanzhao and had crossed paths with her several times. Hard to obtain, impossible to forget. The first time he laid eyes on Xiaozhe, he immediately recognized those eyes that so resembled an old acquaintance's. He would give everything for those eyes, pushed that adoring, reverent child into the abyss of eternal damnation. And I am the vengeful spirit that crawled out from the abyss, come to claim his soul. I will never let him go. 9. It's been so long since I was reborn. Only now do I realize that a single tear from Shaoqi in my past life has turned into a cinnabar mole on my wrist. I stood frozen in shock for a long time, until a clear child's voice pulled me back to reality. Goddess, how were you able to pray for rain? I lowered my head, meeting a pair of clear black and white eyes. These days since my rebirth, I've been busy gaining the emperor's trust, busy plotting my revenge plan, only neglected the most important little highness, such a small child, following behind me like a little tail. Goddess, goddess, asking incessantly, I could never refuse his requests. I pushed open the window lattice, and moonlight streamed through the hall. Did you hear that, your highness? Shaoqi froze in astonishment. Wind, yes, I smiled, and it's an east wind, so tomorrow will be fine weather. One falling leaf heralds the autumn of the world. How does a little beggar who sleeps rough foresee thunderstorms and avoid the rain? It's all thanks to these things: the radiance of the sun, the direction of the wind, the rolling of the clouds. Xiaoqi understood immediately. He seemed lost in thought. What did the goddess see before that rain? A solar halo, I whispered to him. That's why I dared to predict rain at midnight. Having obtained the answer, Xiaoqi stared at me for a long time, so long that I began to feel vaguely uneasy in my heart. I bit my lip imperceptibly. Would he think I'm a liar? Then I heard his crisp voice say, "Goddess, I feel like I've met you before, as if we've crossed paths somewhere." The candlestick in my hand nearly toppled. Oh really? My smile was somewhat forced. It would be better to think of me as a liar. I'd rather he never remembers those things for eternity. I'd rather he had never met me at all. Xiaoqi nodded earnestly, then frowned somewhat troubled. But this lonely one cannot remember. I crouched down, wanting to pat his head. Midway through reaching out, I suddenly felt this act was presumptuous, so I simply smoothed his collar instead. I whispered softly, perhaps it was in a dream. Where could it be? Your Highness is gentle and compassionate. Perhaps you've seen me within your love for all beings. 10. When I stepped into the Eastern Palace, Xiaozhi was clinging to Xiaoqi's arm, acting coquettishly and foolishly. He had Nanjiao ancestry, and though younger than Xiaoqi, he was much taller in stature. It made him seem more like the elder brother. Their fate began with Xiaoqi's kind-hearted rescue. Because of his amber eyes, Xiaozhi had a hard time growing up in the palace. At that time, he hadn't yet reunited with Gu Yan, and had no one to stand up for him. The other princes mocked, bullied, and called him a monster. That day, when he was being bullied as usual, the young crown prince's procession happened to pass by. The princes stopped beating him and knelt by the roadside to pay their respects. They were as docile as could be. Only Xiaozhi's eyes turned red. He lunged forward recklessly. He forcibly stopped the crown prince's carriage. "Brother, save me." Xiaozhi's head was bleeding, with blood streaming down his brow, like a wolf cub driven to a dead end. The guards on both sides moved to expel him, but were stopped mid-action. The sedan curtain was lifted. Xiaozhi looked up in astonishment, meeting those gentle, compassionate eyes. Then, the young crown prince committed the worst mistake of his life. He reached out his hand towards Xiaozhi. He didn't know that the person before him was an ungrateful vicious wolf. A vicious wolf never repays kindness, only wanting to enter the hall and consume his flesh and blood. Xiaozhi hated many people, but the one he hated most was the elder brother who once saved him from fire and water. He hated Xiaoqi for being born in the clouds, showered with endless glory, lofty and aloof. I hate that I can only kneel in the dust, looking up with humility. He hates, I hate too. I insist on keeping the moon suspended high above the clouds. I insist that maggots can only wallow in the mud. 11. Your Holiness. Xiaoqi's eyes sparkled when he saw me. He cheerfully introduced me to his favorite younger brother. This is Xiaozhi. Xiaozhi smiled shyly, calling out sweetly, "Divine sister." I only felt as if a venomous snake had coiled around me, a wave of nausea rising. My mind was filled with images of the Golden Throne Hall from my past life. This person also called Feng Ling in such a sickly sweet tone. Xiaozhi has an extremely strong ability to read people. He immediately noticed my coldness. After acting coquettishly with Xiaoqi for a few sentences, she claimed to feel unwell and excused herself. The tea jar he brought still sits on the table. Lifting the lid, the rich aroma of tea lingers at the tip of the nose. What is this? At the mention of this, a smile touched Xiaoqi's eyes. This is the medicinal tea Xiaozhi gave me. He said it's made in the Nanjiao style. I've never seen tea prepared this way before. My hands are trembling. Xiaoqi watches me cautiously, a face filled with worry. Is the goddess unwell? I shall summon the imperial physicians. I'm fine. Meeting his unconvinced gaze, I forced a smile and gently reassured him. Yes, Your Majesty, the summer heat has recently affected the imperial health. I've heard Nanjiao medicinal tea has cooling properties. Why doesn't Your Highness present some to His Majesty? Xiaoqi nodded solemnly upon hearing this. I took my leave with a smile. The moment he stepped across the palace threshold, his expression darkened. In my memories, His Highness's health had always been frail in his previous life. We sought renowned physicians across the land, yet none could explain the cause, until a wandering doctor from Nanjiao took his pulse and revealed the truth with a single remark. Your Highness is not ill, but poisoned, a rare poison from Nanjiao, little known to the world. The poison has been administered for years, infiltrating the heart meridians, beyond cure. Xiaozhi's birth mother, noble consort Rong, passed away early from illness. Scanning the palace, There was only one person who knew about this Nanjiao poison and could teach him hands-on. Thinking of this, I let out a cold laugh. Just when I thought of taking action, someone handed me the knife. Now that Duan Changfeng hasn't returned to the capital, it's the perfect opportunity for me to divide and conquer. Gu Yan, you love me and extend that love to my people, showing such affection for this child of an old friend. I wonder, how far would you go for him? 12. In the Hall of Mental Cultivation. The Emperor and Shaoqi sat opposite each other brewing tea, with a delicate fragrance curling upwards. This was exactly when I barged in. Your Majesty, Crown Prince, you mustn't. The Emperor frowned. Goddess, what do you mean by this? This tea, it's been tampered with. The teacup shattered on the ground instantly. Your Majesty need not worry. This medicinal tea was originally presented by the second prince to the Crown Prince, said to have cooling and calming effects. The Crown Prince's filial piety in presenting this medicinal tea should be a commendable act, but I had a dream at noon, which is why I rushed here. In the past, I've always used prophetic dreams as my pretext for predictions. The Emperor had always trusted me exceptionally. Moreover, since the dreams kept coming true, he believed them without doubt. I told him about my dream where the tea was poisoned and we both suffered from drinking it. The Emperor's face darkened instantly. He summoned the entire Imperial Medical Bureau for examination. Soon, a royal physician reached a conclusion. Your Majesty, this tea contains a substance called Qingtuoluo. Qingtuoluo itself is non-toxic, but when mixed with tea properties, it produces a peculiar poison. The Emperor was furious. How dare someone attempt to harm me and the Crown Prince? He recalled whose hands had prepared this medicinal tea. Guards, summon the second prince. I coughed unnaturally, my eyes wandering. The Emperor's gaze instantly swept over. Divine Maiden, is there more you wish to say? I lowered my head and spoke slowly. In the dream, there was one more thing. 13. I told the Emperor about the past between Gu Yan and noble consort Rong. The Emperor was shocked and suspicious, sending his secret guards to investigate. Once the hardest conclusion was known, retracing the process quickly brought everything to light. The Emperor was furious beyond measure. Grand Tutor, you are far too impatient. Forming cliques for selfish gains, colluding with princes, poisoning both me and the Crown Prince. Are you tired of being Grand Tutor and wish to become regent instead? The evidence is irrefutable. Gu Yan's face turned deathly pale, his lips parted, but no words came out. His poison was exceptionally rare. He couldn't believe the imperial physicians had detected it so quickly, until he discovered that the poison identified by the imperial physician was green datura. Green datura. Gu Yan awoke as if from a dream, grasping at a glimmer of hope. I never administered green datura. He quickly figured out the whole story. Your Majesty, although I taught the second prince how to prepare the medicinal tea, I swear I had no intention of harming anyone. Why not summon all the palace maids and eunuchs from the eastern palace to see who else has touched this tea? Pointing at me, trembling with rage. Someone must be trying to frame and harm me, Your Majesty. Listening to both sides makes one enlightened, while heeding only one makes one benighted. The Emperor glanced at me hesitantly. With things having come to this, I could only nod with a forced smile. A thin layer of sweat formed in the palm hidden beneath the sleeve. The green datura poison was indeed administered by me. Gu Yan concealed it well. In my past life, only that wandering physician from Nanjiao could recognize such poison. The Imperial Hospital is full of incompetent fools who couldn't diagnose anything, but I'm running out of time. In this vast sea of people, where can I find one wandering physician? However, as long as we confirm it's poisoning, what specific poison was used, does it matter? I still want to give it a try, just for the chance to take down both the Grand Tutor and the second prince in one move. I'd take this risk. That night I acted discreetly, a single oversight, and yet someone still saw it. That person was Misty Rain, the senior palace maid assigned to Shaoqi by the Empress. At present, the members of the Eastern Palace were brought one by one to the hall. In these past days, have any of you seen someone enter the Eastern Palace? My gaze met the Misty Rain in midair. She averted her eyes. There is indeed someone. I dare not hide it from you. Gu Yan pressed impatiently for an answer. Who is it? Yan Yu looked up. Grand Tutor Gu Yan, 14. Both witnesses and material evidence were present. Gu Yan couldn't defend himself despite all arguments, yet still tried to exonerate the second prince. Care leads to chaos. He completely lost his head, unaware that doing so would only anger the emperor further. The emperor flew into a royal rage. Gu Yan was charged with treason, dismissed from office and imprisoned, awaiting execution in autumn. On the eve of the execution, I went to see him in the dungeon. These days, he had already figured out what was going on. Hearing footsteps, he looked up coldly, killing two birds with one stone. What a clever move, I smirked. Of course, it's no match for the Grand Tutor's cunning schemes. Gu Yan was itching to pounce and tear me apart. Why do you keep targeting me and pressing me at every turn? The iron chains binding him clanked noisily. I looked down at him with contempt. I warned you, it's best to have a clear conscience and avoid wicked deeds. The dungeon reeked of blood, and I inhaled almost obsessively before suddenly laughing. Otherwise, beware of vengeful spirits coming to claim your soul. Gu Yan was stunned by my frenzied appearance. Who exactly are you, and what are your intentions? Things have come to this point, I might as well tell him, so he can die with clarity. I came for one person. To slay demons and clear his path for him, my little bodhisattva. Just focus on your mercy for the 6 realms. Behind him, the wrathful Vajra deities subdue the 4 demons. Gu Yan scoffed. The victors become kings, the losers become bandits. No words needed. I raised my hand and poured all the wine brought by the jailer onto the ground. 1,000 cuts await, and not a single one shall be spared. 15. Xiaozhi has gone mad. He lost the support of the Grand Tutor. The Emperor despises him. And Shaoqi feigns illness to avoid meeting. Overnight, he lost everything he possessed. Never again would there be a day of resurgence. As I stepped across the threshold of the cold palace, Xiaozhi knelt by the wall, stuffing wild grass into his mouth to stave off hunger. In just a few days, he seemed like a completely different person, gloomy, haggard, and emaciated. His eyeballs moved mechanically. When he saw me, he only giggled foolishly. I bear you no grudge. Why are you treating me this way? That's a ridiculous question to ask. He's so young, yet his mind is already this venomous. You brought this fate upon yourself. I looked at him and retorted with undisguised sarcasm. Does the Crown Prince have some grudge against you? Xiaozhi froze in place. After a long pause, a hoarse ha-ha sound escaped his throat. He lunged at me like a madman, but I sidestepped to avoid him. His head was bleeding from the impact, blood trickling down his brow as he wore a twisted expression between laughter and tears. Why, even you would stand by his side. He's the legitimate heir born of the Empress, the Crown Prince who's been exalted since birth. Does he really need your help? What about me, a bastard born of an exotic beauty? I have nothing. Goddess, aren't you the goddess? Shouldn't you be saving all living beings? Come save me now. I categorically deny it. I am not. The only one who can save you is the person you yourself reject. What kind of goddess am I? From beginning to end, the only one willing to deliver all sentient beings was His Highness the Crown Prince. Starting today, this cold palace shall be your tomb. You'll be trapped here for the rest of your life, until death. I'll make him watch helplessly as he wastes away. The moon hangs high in the clouds, far beyond reach, and he, only fit to wallow in the mud with maggots. Gazing upward his whole life, the palace doors closed heavily one after another. On the verge of death, Xiaozhi seemed to suddenly regain clarity. Between his lips, a faint vow drifted out. You killed my foster father. There will be time for this. I'll make you pay in blood. I didn't even turn my head. If you refuse to live in disgrace, killing you would be no issue. 16. This is the 7th time I've come to the Eastern Palace these days. The young palace maid wore an apologetic expression. His Highness is ill and will not see anyone. Shaoqi refuses to see me now. With his sharpness, it was only a matter of time before he figured out my meddling. Such a young child, suddenly losing both his respected teacher and beloved younger brother. It's only right to blame me. After some thought, I took out a jade seal from my sleeve. This was the birthday gift I promised to carve for him some days ago. I pondered many auspicious phrases, but ultimately engraved eternal joy without end. May his life be filled with endless joy and everlasting blessings. I asked a young palace maid to deliver it on my behalf, then carefully began to speak. Yunling has no defense to offer. At your Highness's disposal. About to leave, I heard a hoarse voice. Wait. I turned abruptly. Shaoqi, with disheveled clothes, ran out barefoot, eyes reddening, utterly aggrieved. Do you truly not wish to offer this lonely one even a single word in your defense? If you leave today, never set foot in the Eastern Palace again, he threatened, his voice thick with unshed tears. Afraid I might turn and leave, her tiny hand tightly clutched the hem of my clothes. My heart almost broke at the sight. I crouched down to look at his slightly swollen eyes. If I told you, would your Highness believe me? I believe everything you say, but you can't just stay silent. In the end, I still didn't tell him that cruel truth. The malice in this world is a monstrous thing. Yet he's still so young. Before this little phoenix grows its wings, the only thing I want to do is protect him, so I only vaguely told him, Your Highness, I come from your future, but this matter, I cannot tell you in detail. As compensation, you may ask me one question, and I'll answer truthfully. Shaoqi was stunned, as if accepting this fact. After a long while, he tugged at my sleeve and looked up to ask, What will the future me be like? His eyes sparkled with anticipation for the future. He was so sincerely looking forward to his life. I believe it will be as my royal parents, court officials, and historians expect, to usher in a brand new golden age. No one knows, no one would have thought, in the not-too-distant future, he will be deceived, betrayed, and trampled upon by those he trusted most. He will suffer from incurable illness, his frail body bearing no trace of his former radiant spirit. He will become a mad emperor, unrecognizable even to himself. No one will remember the gentle and compassionate crown prince, never again. It felt like a knife stabbed through my heart, the pain making it hard to breathe. On the surface, I still managed to force a smile. I said, The future crown prince will shine through the ages, bestow blessings upon all people, and become a heroic ruler of his generation. I deceived him. In the future, he became a tyrant despised by all. Took his own life on a snowy night at 27, a life of hardship and wandering, never finding peace. Shaoqi's brows and eyes were brimming with radiant joy. What about the goddess? Will the goddess still accompany this lonely one? My nose tingled with sorrow. I will, even if millions turn their backs. Yunling will stand by your highness's side. Shaoqi is truly a sensitive child. I wonder if he noticed something. He suddenly asked me cautiously, Then, what if one day the goddess is no longer here? Shoo. I placed my index finger before my lips. Your Highness, that would be the second question. We agreed, only one question allowed. If you ask again, I won't be able to hold back my tears. Shaoqi huffed angrily and burrowed himself under the blanket. He rolled around, looking quite annoyed. Suddenly remembering something, he poked his head out. His voice muffled, Goddess, you won't leave, right? Rest assured, young highness, how could I bear to leave you? 17. When I left the Eastern Palace, I happened upon the Empress's procession. Aunt Yenyu, who had escorted me out, came to a halt. She gestured to me with a pleased motion. Her Majesty the Queen has been waiting for a long time. My heart suddenly sank. Again, the Queen's gentle voice came from within the palanquin. Divine Maiden, do not worry. This consort merely wishes to speak a few words with you. I pursed my lips and parted the beaded curtain. The Empress was extraordinarily beautiful, a dignified and graceful face shape, with slender, sparse eyebrows arched like crescent moons, exuding a sense of refinement, like Guanyin stepping out of an ancient painting. I couldn't tear my eyes away. Finally understood where Shaoqi inherited his looks from. The Queen was accustomed to this. Seeing my dazed expression, she did not reprimand me. She merely took a sip of tea. The goddess's actions are rather careless, aren't they? My breath hitched, knowing she was referring to my consumption of King Tuoluo. But don't worry, she chuckled lightly as she set down the teacup. Yenyu is my most trusted confidant. What happened that night will never be known by a fourth person. I opened my mouth hesitantly. Suddenly, I didn't know what to say. After a long pause, all I managed to ask was, Why? Because I trust you. The Empress lowered her gaze, admiring her golden fingernail guards. 10 years ago, I met you. You once saved my little phoenix's life. What? My eyes widened abruptly. How is this possible? The Queen's expression remained indifferent. You need not doubt. This palace never forgets what it has seen. Therefore, this palace believes in you. The next sentence carries an implicit meaning. This time, it is this palace who settles the goddess's affairs. Next time, be more careful. Before I could ask more, the Empress smiled faintly. This consort is weary. Misty rain. See our guest out. 18. Within the palace stands a stargazing pavilion. It is said that the current imperial preceptor is the wisest and most enlightened person in the world. However, with an eccentric temper, even daring to contradict the emperor, thus falling out of imperial favor. After a long time, the door of the stargazing pavilion was knocked upon once again. The thick dust made me cough incessantly. After a moment, the dust gradually settled, and the view became clear. I saw a rather young and handsome little monk. His features were picturesque, with pearly teeth and vermilion lips. He chanted a Buddhist invocation. The young monk, Miaofa. The voice was hoarse like an old man's. I was so startled that I took a step back. Miaofa remained oblivious, smiling with closed eyes. Goddess, how have you been? Would you like some wine? 100 emotions surged in my heart. I didn't know whether to ask him first, "Can you see me?" or "Monks aren't supposed to drink wine, are they?" or perhaps, "Have we met before?" Miaofa seemed to know exactly what I was thinking. He said, "This humble monk recognizes your footsteps, benefactor." I frowned. "You're quite a strange monk, aren't you?" He wasn't angry, just chuckled softly. "The goddess's words make this humble monk somewhat sorrowful." I rubbed my arm, nearly getting goosebumps. An awkward silence ensued. The mystic law sighs. On the Little Highness's 100-day celebration, the skies were ablaze with rosy clouds, and 100 birds sang in unison. A celestial immortal wandered here and bestowed upon the Little Highness the courtesy named Phoenix. The emperor deemed it an auspicious omen and commanded painters to create the divine maiden portrait. I froze in astonishment. A decade ago, did another divine maiden visit the palace? Miaofa lowered her gaze and simply said, "The divine maiden portrait is kept in the Eastern Palace." He seemed to have something more to say, but I left in too much of a hurry, and he didn't have time to speak. I didn't see it either. After I left the stargazing pavilion, the visage of the wondrous law aged at a visibly rapid pace, youthful beauty at dawn, withered bones by dusk. He finally opened his eyes. If I were here, I would surely cry out in surprise. Miaofa's eye sockets were hollow, containing nothing, but judging by the outline, he once possessed a pair of exceptionally beautiful eyes. 19. I found that divine maiden painting. The wonderful Dharma deceived me. There was indeed a figure with fluttering robes in the painting, bestowing blessings upon the young prince, yet it was unclear whether the pigments had faded or the artist had intentionally left it blank. The face of the goddess remained indistinct, feeling stifled with anger. After much deliberation, I still believe Miaofa knows something. Not only does he know, but he also deceived me. I rose in a furious rage, ready to storm the stargazing pavilion, but then I heard the bells toll, like a stone cast into water, sending ripples through the palace. I called out to the eunuch running past me, "What's going on?" In my past life, I heard Shaoqi's funeral bell toll. It wasn't like this now. The Grand Preceptor has passed away. The stargazing pavilion has an unusually large number of visitors today. I pushed through the bustling crowd. My gaze swept over the withered remains on the lotus platform, then wandered aimlessly around the attic. What about the wondrous Dharma? With sleeves heavily drooping, Shaoqi looked up at me with a worried expression. "Goddess, why are you crying?" I touched my face and only then felt the wet traces on my hand. "I don't know, Queen." Wonderful Dharma, goddess painting. The world spins before my eyes. The mottled hues of the scroll fill my vision. I could even see the tiny down feathers on that phoenix's wings, yet no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't clearly see the divine maiden's eyes and brows in the painting. I must have forgotten something very important. Most likely, after many inquiries, I found Miaofa's apprentice outside the palace. Upon learning my purpose, the portly monk lowered his brows and chanted a Buddhist invocation. "The benefactor has arrived." These words suggested he had long anticipated my coming. The master did indeed leave a message for the benefactor. The plump monk smiled. Would the benefactor like to hear the truth or a lie? I froze. What? The lie is, better to cherish the one before your eyes. The truth is, I hate you so much, but being with you is fun. I want to meet you again in the next life. 20. The 19th year of Jianing, spring blossoms in their grace. Yunling. A figure in fluttering red robes came galloping through the woods. Broad shoulders and a narrow waist, whose young master is this strikingly handsome. He pulled out a chubby little white cat from his bosom and presented it to me like a treasure. Its fur is so white and soft to touch. I've given it a name. Let's call it Osmanthus Cake. Okay. His eyes curved with a starry glint of laughter. This year, Shaoqi turned 16, just as I wished. He grew into a spirited young man. This is a highness I've never seen in my past life. I gazed at the radiant youth before me, my heart aching, unable to tear my eyes away. He should have remained like this forever, bold and brilliant. However, what I didn't expect was, the young prince has grown up, no longer trailing behind me like a little shadow, calling me goddess. Instead, he affectionately calls me Yunling at every turn. He was once curious about the origin of my name, pestering me with endless questions. I helplessly pointed at the cloud slice cake on the small table, then at another plate of Poria Coco's cake. It sounds funny, but that's truly how it came to be. I was abandoned at birth and remained a nameless beggar until the age of 10, when I sneaked into the Spring Breeze Pavilion. Back then, some maids were just passing around pastries. I have no name, but I remember the names of all the pastries. Young master, I am Yunling. Then I stood before Feng Ling and told him this hastily concocted name. The cloying scent of passion still lingered in the room. Feng Ling wore a thin robe, her gaze fixed on the distant sky. Unfocused, I crouched before him, stammering as I spoke. Young master, from now on, Yun Ling will protect you. Yun Ling has come to repay your kindness. Feng Ling's eyeballs turned mechanically. He spoke, his voice so light it seemed to dissipate in the lingering stove smoke. What kind of gratitude are you repaying? How could I ever forget this? I solemnly remind you, on New Year's Eve, the young master gave me a steamed bun. At that time, I hadn't yet recognized that the person before me was the crown prince. I came to his side, followed him, and pledged my loyalty to him, simply because, when I was starving, he gave me a steamed bun. Feng Ling was stunned. He had shown countless acts of kindness throughout half his life, diligently striving to be a benevolent crown prince. In the end, he was abandoned by all. Only a little beggar remembered the steamed bun he casually gave away, covering his face. His whole body trembled as he burst into uncontrollable laughter, yet I felt he was crying. Young master, I panicked. Who dared to bully you? I'll kill them. For this one promise, I followed you through 2 lifetimes, never dared to forget. 21. The osmanthus cake Xiaoqi picked up grew bigger and bigger, until one day I fell into deep thought as I noticed the black stripes gradually appearing on its body. Osmanthus cake wagged its big head, its round ears nudging against me. Awoo! I stroked its thick paw and glanced at Xiaoqi beside me. Is this the cat your highness picked up? Xiaoqi coughed lightly, struggling to suppress his laughter. Ling, how did you only notice this now? Your highness has become naughty. I got so angry that I pretended to pinch Xiaoqi's ear. He grabbed my wrist. His eyes curved in a pleading smile. I was wrong. This humble one admits the mistake. Amidst the playful banter, a light cough sounded from ahead. Misty rain furrowed her brows. Your highness, Miss Qin's carriage is already waiting outside the palace gates. The crown prince had reached the age for selecting a consort. The queen searched through noble ladies in the capital repeatedly, finally setting her sights on Qin Wan, the granddaughter of the old duke. Both families intended to arrange a match, so they chose tonight's Lantern Festival night market for the two to stroll together. Xiaoqi frowned. Didn't I say I wouldn't go? I broke free from Xiaoqi's grasp and forced a smile. Your highness, you should go now. Don't keep Miss Qin waiting too long. Yan Yu also said, Your highness, if you delay any longer, Her Majesty the Empress will blame this humble servant. Xiaoqi was escorted out of the palace gates amidst a crowd. Several times he wanted to look back, but the anxious palace maids and eunuchs kept blocking him, gradually fading into the distance. I could barely see him in the crowd anymore, until I felt a damp, prickly sensation in my palm. Osmanthus cake was licking my hand. I lowered my gaze to the cinnabar mole on my wrist. Ever since overthrowing the Grand Tutor and Xiaoxia, this mole has faded from its original intensity. I came to this world because of the cinnabar mole. Perhaps when the cinnabar mole disappears, I'll be forced to leave as well. Return to that snowy night when Xiaoqi was lost forever. Can't think too deeply about it. All I know is, I need to deal with someone as soon as possible. These days, a major incident occurred in the imperial court. The northern garrison army returned victorious, and young Marquis Duan will arrive in the capital shortly. 22. In the previous life, Your Highness regarded Duan Chongfeng as a close friend. Yet Duan Chongfeng provided false testimony for Gu Yan, falsely accusing Your Highness of conspiring with him in treasonous correspondence. He did all this simply because he couldn't stand Your Highness's gentle and compassionate demeanor. Thus, he schemed meticulously to drag the lofty flower down from its divine pedestal. He wanted his gaze to focus solely on himself, leaving no room for others, to satisfy his perverse possessiveness. In their past life, Xiaoqi's first act after ascending the throne was to kill him. The Duan family had been marquises for generations, with deep-rooted influence in the court. Now without the Grand Tutor and Xiaoxia collaborating with him from within and without, after Miafa's nirvana, I succeeded as the state preceptor and also cultivated my own influence within the palace. It remains difficult to take action against Duan Chongfeng, however. I recall those humiliations and tramplings. I wish I could kill him with my bare hands right now. Roar. My hands tightened unconsciously, hurting the osmanthus cake I was holding. It jumped out of my arms angrily, complaining to me with grievance. At that very moment, someone hurried over with urgent news. Duan Chongfeng has left the main army and taken a side road back to the capital. He has now entered the city. As night fell, I suddenly rose to my feet. Duan Chongfeng returned alone without his guards, and he had sneaked back secretly. The opportunity has come. 23. When I found Duan Chongfeng at the night market, he was harassing a girl, refusing to return the lantern he had snatched from her. The palm gripping the dagger grew slightly sweaty. I took a deep breath. Yunling, I warned myself, if tonight's plan succeeds, your highness will have no more worries. My time is running out. While he's occupied toying with that girl, I raised my hand. A blade flashing from my sleeve through the night. Crack. A dull thud as the blade pierced his neck. Duan Chongfeng reacted too quickly, almost an instinct honed between life and death. His body twitched slightly, dodging the vital point. He narrowly avoided what should have been a fatal strike. Like an enraged beast, he gripped the blade desperately, letting it cut deep into his palm until blood dripped freely. With his other hand, he blocked 7 or 8 of my accomplices and effortlessly broke my right arm. He ignored the surrounding attacks from other assassins. Every move was seasoned and ruthless, aimed straight at my vital points. The crowd panicked and began pushing chaotically at the sight of blood. There's an assassin. Murder, murder, quick, report to the authorities. In that instant, amidst the bustling crowd, I saw a pair of startled eyes. Xiaoqi was looking at me through the black cloth covering his face, as if trying to peer deep into my soul. After a brief moment of eye contact, I averted my gaze. The dagger was nearly bent into scrap metal by Duan Chongfeng, clattering to the ground. I thought to myself, this is bad. Without another thought, I dashed into the alley. Duan Chongfeng clutched his neck and roared in anger. He set his sights on me tonight and chased after me. I swear I'll kill you. The night wind made my robes billow. I caught the heavy scent of blood from the person behind me, fleeing desperately into ever deeper and more dilapidated alleys. Duan Chongfeng spent years campaigning abroad, while I've scurried through the streets and alleys of Shengjing like a rat since childhood. When it comes to familiarity with these winding lanes, he's no match for me. Soon, after rounding 2 more shadowy alleys, Duan Chongfeng was completely shaken off my trail. I collapsed weakly to my knees on the ground, clutching my chest. Unable to stop panting, the fabric at my lower abdomen was soaked with blood. The assassination failed, lost a hand, and got a bloody hole stabbed through my body. Duan Chongfeng's vigilance is even higher than I expected. This time I underestimated the enemy. From far to near, flames lit up as numerous footsteps mingled with the night. The government officers are chasing us. I staggered to my feet unsteadily. Just took one step forward. In the darkness, a cold voice rang out. This person had chased all the way here without even catching their breath. Halt. My whole body froze. No longer caring about the pain, I turned and fled. Yunling, how dare you? Xiaoqi gnashed his teeth in anger. If you dare to run away, I'll break your legs when we get back. I mean what I say. I thought, it's over. Just as I was doing something bad, I got caught red-handed. His Highness is truly angry this time. He wouldn't really arrest me and execute me on the spot, would he? I pretended to be weak, covering my abdomen, staggered a few steps towards Xiaoqi's direction. Your Highness, it hurts so much. Aiming carefully, I suddenly collapsed onto him. Xiaoqi instinctively caught me. He touched a handful of blood and panicked. Poria Cocos. I smelled the deep, elegant palace fragrance on him, pretended to faint. Your Highness shows compassion for the weak. So I presume you would first take me back to the palace for treatment before proceeding with any reprimands. As for Duan Chongfeng, he hasn't shown his true colors yet. The matter of killing him requires careful planning. 24. Duan Chongfeng was utterly humiliated, hopping mad with rage. He kept shouting that once the assassin was caught, he'd have the person sliced to pieces. Don't you think this is downright spooky? That night the entire city was on lockdown, every corner of Shengjing was turned upside down, and yet, the assassin still managed to escape, seeing Xiaoqi ignore him. Duan Chongfeng cried ouch in pain, as if unable to take care of himself. He wanted Xiaoqi to apply medicine for him. Xiaoqi lifted his eyelids, finally uttered the first words of the day. Did your hand break? Duan Chongfeng observed his expression. Is that white tiger you picked up making you angry again? What was its name again? Fulling cake. Xiaoqi let out a cold laugh, separated by a folding screen. I listened with trepidation. That night, Xiaoqi stuffed me into a carriage, evaded inspection, and brought me back to the palace. Sitting under the lamp, he saw clearly my blood-stained, wretched state. He could barely suppress his fury. 2 lifetimes. This was the first time I'd seen him so angry. He asked, why do this? I said, because I have a grudge against him. What grudge? A blood feud. Xiaoqi couldn't get any answers out of me, so he simply confined me to a side hall to recuperate from my injuries. letting Duan Chongfeng rage in frustration at being unable to capture anyone. I couldn't figure out what Xiaoqi was thinking either. Duan Chongfeng had just left. I immediately emerged from behind the screen. Your Highness, I cleared my throat guiltily. There's still work piled up at the stargazing pavilion. I should return. Without waiting for Xiaoqi to speak, I turned and slipped away. Yunling, how dare you? That phrase again. I sighed in my heart. Your Highness. There's nothing I wouldn't dare. My courage is actually greater than you think, yet still obediently stopped in my tracks, crimson sleeves draped before me. Your Highness, I looked up at him, enunciating each word deliberately. You can't stop me, Duan Chongfeng. I am determined to kill him. Seeing me so self-righteous, Xiaoqi became furious. The Duan family has been ennobled for generations, their achievements overshadowing the throne, and Duan Chongfeng is the old marquis's only son. Assassinating someone in public, are you trying to get yourself killed? If caught, how many heads would be enough to chop off? So you were afraid I might get caught, I said earnestly. Your Highness, rest assured, if captured, I will surely disfigure myself and never implicate the Eastern Palace. Xiaoqi was absolutely furious. That's not what I meant. I slightly furrowed my brows. What does that mean? Xiaoqi stared at me for a long time, finally gave in. I was just worried. These days, I keep thinking about that night over and over. His voice trembled, at times fading to near inaudibility. Had I arrived a moment later, would I still have been able to see you? The entire city is under lockdown, with officers and soldiers sealing off every street and alley, preparing to catch their prey in a trap. Can I really escape? The prince, who had always charged forward without hesitation, was now feeling the aftershock of fear. So he doesn't blame me for trying to kill his close friend. I lowered my head silently, not daring to meet his eyes. Yunling promises Your Highness, from now on, no more risks will be taken. It was all my recklessness. Your Highness, please don't be sad. 25. Summer fades into autumn. My injuries have almost completely healed. The assassination attempt on Duan Chongfeng was left unresolved as the assassin was never caught. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the autumn hunt at Bailu Mountain. Dressed in black martial attire, Xiaoqi hit the bullseye with an arrow, claiming first place. The hall erupted in cheers as Qinwan smiled and handed him a handkerchief. Your Highness, wipe your sweat and take a rest. For this autumn hunt, the Empress specifically instructed her to attend. Even the station tents were placed right next to Xiaoqi's. Xiaoqi politely declined, pulling out another old embroidered handkerchief from his sleeve. I stared at that handkerchief, finding it strangely familiar no matter how I looked at it. Qinwan clearly saw the pattern on it. The tense face suddenly relaxed. The rooster on this handkerchief was embroidered by Your Highness yourself, wasn't it? Does Your Highness like this design? Another day. This subject will embroider another one for Your Highness. Xiaoqi's eye twitched. He muttered, this is a phoenix. I closed my eyes in despair. This handkerchief was a birthday gift Xiaoqi once pestered me for years ago. I'm quite skilled at killing and looting, but when it comes to embroidery, my stitches are crooked and too ugly to look at. Sensing the awkward atmosphere, I cleared my throat, about to smooth things over. Beside them, a frivolous voice suddenly rang out, don't mind His Highness. He's always been this clueless about romance. If His Highness won't accept it, Miss Qin, why not give that handkerchief to me instead? Duan Chongfeng stood with arms crossed, having watched the scene for who knows how long. His gaze swept over with a playful smile. The goddess's hands are deftly skilled. Has she ever done needlework for Your Highness? Qinwan let out a soft laugh upon hearing this. Young Marquis, mind your words. How could the goddess stoop to such mundane matters? Duan Chongfeng smiled ambiguously. I do hope the goddess is truly as untainted by worldly dust as they say, otherwise, wouldn't it be deceiving the world and misleading the masses? The visitor comes with ill intent. His words carry hidden meanings. Xiaoqi frowned and interrupted. The divine maiden was personally appointed by His Majesty. How dare you speak of her with such insolence? I met Duan Chongfeng's gaze. I clearly saw the mockery and derision within. What does the young marquis wish to say? Duan Chongfeng smiled. Since the divine maiden can observe celestial phenomena at night, her eyesight must be extraordinary. Shooting an arrow through a willow leaf at 100 paces would be nothing difficult for her. Do you dare to compete with me in archery? Xiaoqi wanted to stop me, but I held him back. He dares to make trouble in public like this. He must have learned something. Moreover, he came prepared, rather than retreat. It's better to see what he's up to. Duan Chongfeng smiled triumphantly. If a divine maiden cannot surpass a mere mortal like me, Wouldn't those stargazing eyes of hers be nothing but an empty reputation? I see, I chuckled in response. They say the young Marquis could shoot down an enemy commander from amidst 10,000 troops, achieving remarkable military feats at such a tender age. If you lose to me, wouldn't these hawkeyes be undeserving of their reputation? I wonder how much of those accumulated military achievements are true, and how much are fabricated. Duan Chongfeng's face instantly turned ashen. Is the divine maiden so confident about defeating me? No, I believe in your highness. I turned my gaze to Xiaoqi, whose face was as still as water. I am not skilled in archery. Please teach me, your highness. 26. The warm chest of the youth pressed against my back. His head rested on my shoulder, adjusting my posture. Press the front shoulder firmly, wrapping around my hand, guiding me to draw the bowstring, knock the arrow and draw empty. The breath was close to my ear, carrying a hint of hoarseness. The moment I let go, I suddenly looked up and saw his serious profile. This scene felt strangely familiar. In a past life, 1 year, His Highness taught me archery, saying these exact same words, but at that time he was too ill to get out of bed. Cloaked in a greatcoat, he sat not far away, instructing me on how to stand and turn my wrist. In my memory, I pretended to be practiced as I drew the bow, and likewise loosed that arrow. For a moment, I was dazed, a silver flash, and the arrowhead was already embedded in the bullseye. Xiaoqi, after all, had the heart of a youth. Seeing me hit such a good shot with my first arrow, he was extremely proud, his eyes sparkling with joy. He exclaimed excitedly, "You shot very well." In my memory, that arrow I shot was crooked, not even hitting the target. His Highness was amused. As he laughed, he couldn't suppress his coughing, feeling somewhat melancholic. "If I were in better health, I could teach you hands-on, but you shot very well." He raised his eyes, his gaze extremely gentle. "Ling is my most talented student." At that time, I always felt His Highness was comforting me. What kind of talent is it to shoot arrows that disappear? Later I realized he wasn't lying to me. In his entire life, His Highness only ever taught me archery. As his only student, naturally, I'm the most talented, transcending past and present lives. Similar scenes, the same words, holding back tears, I whispered softly, "Because your Highness taught me well. I'm not the best student, but your Highness is the best teacher." Duan Chongfeng watched coldly, impatiently toying with his heavy bow, started speaking with sarcasm. "What? The goddess has already learned archery. If you lose later, don't say I bullied you. How about you divine a hexagram for yourself and see what your chances of winning are today?" I neither agreed nor disagreed. "I've already divined it." Duan Chongfeng was taken aback. "What?" As I spoke, I had already picked out a bow, turning back with a smile. "Tenfold, beating you is more than enough. This is the archery His Highness once taught me. I will never lose." 27. Duan Chongfeng knocked and drew arrows in rapid succession, completing the motion in one fluid movement. 3 white feathered arrows hit the bullseye in quick succession. The crowd cheered as Duan Chongfeng raised a scornful eyebrow and gestured for me to proceed with a please motion. I glanced at him. I knocked all 3 arrows onto the bowstring simultaneously. The crowd whispers among themselves, "Even the young Marquis only shoots 1 arrow at a time. The goddess is being overly confident. With her like this, she probably can't even draw the bow. I think this is just losing composure." Duan Chongfeng crossed his arms and sneered, "Overestimating your own abilities." I stared into the distance, but in my mind lingered the gentle expression of His Highness on his sickbed. He said, "Ling is my most talented student." His Highness was proficient in the 6 arts, with particularly outstanding skills in archery and horsemanship. In his youth, he shot and killed a fierce tiger with a single arrow, becoming the most celebrated prodigy in the capital. I believe, teacher, I have not disgraced your reputation. For those words of yours. In my past life, I mastered archery to perfection. Though I couldn't shoot down a fierce tiger, I could easily hit a willow leaf 100 paces away. I'm no longer the little girl who could miss her shots. The bow bends like a full moon. With a whistling sound, 3 white feathered arrows leave the string. One hits the bullseye perfectly, wedging between Duan Chongfeng's 3 arrows. An arrow hits a wild fruit on a distant tree, dead center without the slightest deviation. The last arrow grazes Duan Chongfeng's head and embeds itself into the tree trunk, startling a shower of green leaves from the tree. Silence falls. Xiaoqi looked at me in astonishment. Duan Chongfeng's face darkened, yet he remained defiant. "The competition rule is to hit the target. The one with more arrows on the bullseye wins. Even if you shoot an arrow at my head, there'd still only be 1 arrow on the target. What good would that do?" I let out an inexplicable laugh. The next moment, exclamations erupted from the crowd. Duan Changfeng looked up in astonishment. On the target, only one of my feathered arrows remained. The arrow's force was so great that it knocked down all three of Duan Changfeng's arrows. I met Xiaoqi's gaze and smiled faintly. Young Marquis, I concede. 28. The moonlight was clear and bright. I gazed at the candlelight, pondering how to embroider a more beautiful phoenix. An uninvited guest arrived in the tent. A gleaming blade flashed before my eyes. It came straight for my neck. It was almost an instinctive bodily reaction as I leaned back to evade. Turning around, I thrust the dagger from my sleeve in a backhand strike. In the blink of an eye, we had already exchanged 7 or 8 moves, until he pinned me against the edge of the bed. I knocked off the black cloth covering his face. It's you. Duan Changfeng's thumb brushed past the corner of my eye. Miss Qin was right. It was indeed you that night. Your Excellency the Divine Maiden. You've been quite hard to find, young master. Qin Wan. It suddenly dawned on me, that night, more than just Xiaoqi saw me. There was also Qin Wan who came chasing after. If it weren't for her betrayal, Duan Changfeng would never have suspected me. The next moment, he groaned and was forced to retreat. I pulled out the dagger that was embedded in his abdomen, blood splattered, dripping and staining the newly embroidered silk handkerchief. TSK, I frowned in disgust, grabbed Duan Changfeng's hand. Duan Changfeng licked his lips. What? Is the goddess scared now? Beg me. The smile was teasing. If you beg nicely, maybe I'll let you go. Amused eyes lingered on my loosened collar from the fight. Catching my breath, I shouted toward the tent entrance. Help, there's an assassin. Duan Changfeng was stunned. He smiled strangely, full of mockery. No one is coming to save you. He simply pulled open the bed curtain with bold abandon. As he said, there wasn't a single guard in sight on patrol. The emperor was assassinated. All the guards went to rescue him. Then who will come to save you? In the blink of an eye, my pupils contracted as I grasped the hidden meaning behind his words. You dare. He smiled, his ambition gleaming unmistakably in his eyes. Why wouldn't I dare? However, I won't kill you for now. Aren't you the Divine Maiden? I can't wait for the day we drag you down from your sacred pedestal. I frowned. Duan Changfeng clicked his tongue. If he knew you've forgotten him so easily, he'd probably go mad with rage. The people you've offended are not just me. 29. I hurried to the main tent and finally understood Duan Changfeng's meaning. The emperor was assassinated. At the critical moment, someone rushed forward to take a knife for him. Second Prince Xiaoxia. After years apart, he had grown into the appearance of a young man. His features were deep-set and somber, with no trace of his former innocent demeanor remaining. There was no time to bandage the wound that was still bleeding. He confessed in tears. During these years in the cold palace, he reflected on his sins day and night, filled with regret. For this autumn hunt, he pleaded with Duan Changfeng to disguise himself as a servant of the Duan family to accompany them, all just to see his imperial father and elder brother, the crown prince. Once more, he does not seek to atone for his crimes with merit, he only begs his father not to refuse to see him. Blood soaked his clothes in large patches, so it was a self-inflicted scheme of suffering all along. The emperor sighed. His eyes filled with nothing but heartache. Back then, you were still young and inevitably misled by treacherous people. If you truly repent, then all is well. Xiaoxia expressed his gratitude, looking utterly grateful and obedient, extremely well behaved. Only I could see it. As he stood up, he curved his lips toward my direction, revealing sharp canine teeth. Like a beast bearing its fangs, I saw clearly those sickly eyes, and understood his lip movements. Sister goddess, how have you been? Xiaoqi beside me subtly blocked his gaze without a word. Looking up, I met his accusatory gaze. I was somewhat baffled. Xiaoqi said calmly, tonight, the moment you entered, you kept staring at him. I was bewildered. Yes. Xiaoqi's expression changed slightly. With a dark face, he coldly said to Xiaoxia, the goddess is busy, she does not receive idlers on ordinary days. If you wish to reminisce, you may come find me. Xiaoxia smiled sweetly. This is excellent. 30. The relationship between Xiaoxia and Duan Changfeng wasn't as simple as I had imagined. Perhaps some deal was struck between them. With no power or influence now, what exactly did Duan Changfeng see in Xiaoxia to offer his assistance and form an alliance? Today marks the final day of the autumn hunt, an unexpected calm. At the moment, Xiaoqi chased the wild fox into the mountain forest. Since the first day he entered the mountains, he had been longing to hunt for a piece of soft fur. The guards around him were dwindling. I pursed my lips and urged my horse to follow. The the moment we entered the forest, something unexpected happened. An arrow glinting coldly shot out suddenly from the shadows. Xiaoqi turned around, and the arrow narrowly missed his shoulder. Just as we breathed a sigh of relief, we saw Xiaoqi's pupils constrict sharply. Ling, dozens of cold arrows shot towards me simultaneously. So the previous arrow was just a feint. This time, they're coming for me. The leaves rustled, revealing countless black-clad assassins hidden in the bushes. I gritted my teeth. Your Highness, run. Xiaoqi remained silent, firing 3 more arrows that sent the black-clad ambushers behind me wailing to the ground. A smoke bomb exploded in the air. In the chaos, I got separated from Xiaoqi. Seeing these assassins were all targeting me, I dashed deeper into the woods. The terrain was complex. Perhaps there was still a sliver of hope, but ahead, I saw a broken cliff. There's a familiar figure over there. Duan Changfeng had just stowed a wild badger into the side pouch behind his horse. The pursuers had already caught up from behind. I turned my horse around and looked at Duan Changfeng, who turned back in astonishment. His face was filled with terror. What are you trying to, ugh? Deciding to just push Duan Changfeng off the cliff edge along with me, during the rapid descent, I clung desperately to his collar, pressing down on him. Make sure he's the one who hits the ground first. Duan Changfeng frantically pried at my hand. You're crazy. I bit down hard on the back of his hand, and he let go in pain. I thought, if I die here today, taking one down with me is worth it. Not a bad deal. 31. Below the cliff, tree branches sprawled wildly. Good news, I didn't die from the fall. Bad news, Duan Changfeng didn't die from the fall either. This is our 3rd day trapped at the bottom of the valley. Duan Changfeng sat in the corner of the cave, bruised and battered. His face was scratched by small tree branches. Sensing my gaze, he looked up warily. What are you trying to do now? Last night while he was sound asleep, I pressed clothes tightly over his mouth and nose. Unfortunately it failed. His struggling was too strong and threw me off, so this morning. He kept looking at me like that. I sneered. You'd better sleep with your eyes open tonight. I touched my neck, where bruises still remained. Those were marks from 2 days ago when he tried to strangle me, but he didn't succeed either. There's still a hairpin hidden in my sleeve. It was thrust hard into the back of his neck, forcing him to loosen his grip. These days, he and I have been trying to kill each other. Duan Changfeng scratched his head irritably. I told you. This assassin has nothing to do with me. It's that brat Xiaoxia who couldn't hold back anymore and decided to target you. The expression doesn't seem feigned. I casually asked. So what exactly did you see in Xiaoxia to form an alliance with him? Because he's easy to manipulate. Duan Changfeng smiled with ambiguous meaning. A prince without power, what else can he do but rely on me? In that moment, I was certain I saw the ambition in this man's eyes. The Duan family's achievements overshadow the throne. How could they be content with mere vassalage? He intends to prop up a puppet emperor, but Xiaoxia wasn't so easy to control. In his previous life, after Xiaoxia ascended to power, he secretly divided the military generals. By the time Duan Changfeng realized what was happening, he had lost most of his military authority and could only flee in panic back to the northern frontier, His Highness's path of vengeance in the past life. The first step is to settle accounts with Duan Changfeng, the weakest faction, use his blood to consecrate our banner. I kept a straight face and merely said, Young Marquis, beware, puppets may devour their masters. Duan Changfeng said disdainfully, just him, he's being far too confident. I pretended to casually remind him, you really had no idea about the assassins he hired this time. Xiaoxia was indeed too reckless this time, even if he hates me so much. He shouldn't have openly tried to kill me at this moment. What Duan Changfeng can least tolerate is acting without authorization. It seems years in the cold palace have driven Xiaoxia mad. The person before me darkened their expression. I think it's done. Once the seed of discord is sown, its growth into a towering tree is just a matter of time. I want them to turn against each other. Then, divide and conquer. 32. The forest beneath the cliff is perpetually shrouded in thick fog. I tried finding the path several times, but kept going in circles and ended up back in front of the cave. This is the 7th day trapped at the bottom of the valley. Don't waste your energy. Duan Changfeng lifted his eyelids. If you're so eager to die, why not let me strangle you to vent my hatred? The last distress smoke signal on him has just been used up, yet there's not a single trace of any search and rescue team. He's in a terrible mood right now, I sneered, in my eyes. You're in cahoots with Xiaoxia. Xiaoxia harmed me, which means you harmed me. As for whom I take revenge on, it makes no difference. Duan Chongfeng was furious. You woman, how can you be so unreasonable? I also laughed in extreme anger. If you have the ability, kill Xiaoxia, and I'll let you go. Duan Chongfeng seemed to be seriously considering this proposal. Really, my expression couldn't be more innocent. Naturally, it's fake, those two, I must eliminate. It's only a matter of time. 33. Before I knew it, night had fallen. These past few days have been mentally exhausting, with excessive worrying, ended up developing a high fever. In the dream, it was still those days at the Spring Breeze Tower. That day, I had already learned Feng Ling's true identity, once heaven's favored son, now fallen into the dust. I was shocked, pained, and utterly bewildered. His Highness lowered his eyes calmly, his expression fading into the daylight. He said staying by his side was dangerous, that many hated him, and perhaps I might lose my life one day. If I were to leave now, he wouldn't blame me. What was it that I said back then? I said, I would serve your highness faithfully until death. Later, I traveled around with your highness's handwritten letter, contacting former subordinates. One day, I managed to reach the former leader of the Eastern Palace's secret guards. He was also searching for your highness. Everyone lurks in the shadows, awaiting only your highness's return. I rushed back excitedly, eager to share this tremendous news with your highness. Then I noticed, the door to your highness's chamber was ajar. A faint scent of blood crept into my nostrils. I barged in, yet I halted my steps before the final screen. I saw the human figure reflected upon it. A man was pinning his highness beneath him. The prince held a golden hairpin in his hand, driving it fiercely into the back of the man's neck. Once, twice. The man was dead beyond dead. Eiling, but your highness's shadow is trembling. The voice was almost pleading. He said, don't look. Many years later, on the snowy night when your highness took their own life, after so long, I saw that expression on your highness's face again. Yunling, I'm so filthy, don't look. In the dream, my heart felt like it was being crumpled by a giant hand. The pain was so intense I could barely breathe. No, that's not right. My survival instinct made me open my eyes abruptly. I met Duan Chongfeng's cold gaze directly. He strangled my neck with deadly force, actually resorting to his old tricks, still trying to kill me. Duan Chongfeng laughed. I thought it over all night and decided to kill you first before dealing with Xiaoxia. There are too many variables about you. I simply can't feel at ease. The hand around my neck tightened relentlessly, my face turning ashen as my struggles grew weaker. My pupils strained to focus, finally making out. Behind Duan Chongfeng, a dark figure lunged straight toward him. A long, drawn-out wolf howl pierced the air. 34. Duan Chongfeng was struck from behind, forcing him to release his grip on my neck. He stared fixedly at the newcomer, both shocked and furious. Who are you? The man didn't answer and walked straight up to me. Speaking in a strange accent, he asked stiffly, alive, coughing violently. My vision gradually cleared. He was a rather wild-looking youth, bare-chested, with only a piece of animal hide wrapped around the waist. Long, curly black hair cascaded down, reaching almost to the bare ankles, and yet, this youth had a pair of beast-like, amber-colored eyes. So unfamiliar, so familiar, I exclaimed in shock. Ashuo. Despite his disheveled appearance, I still recognized him. The person before me was the chief of the Eastern Palace's secret guards in my past life, my former colleague. But why isn't he wearing any clothes now? The boy tilted his head in confusion, struggling to comprehend my words. He suddenly stood up, grabbing my sleeve to pull me outside. Duan Chongfeng was filled with doubt and surprise. Do you know him? I neither confirmed nor denied, glaring at him fiercely. Just you wait. After many twists and turns, Ashuo led me into another cave. On the stone platform lay two emaciated wolf carcasses. I once heard a legend that a she-wolf would carry away abandoned infants and raise them as her own cubs. When the infants grew up, their habits resembled those of wolves, and they could not speak human language. The world calls him the wolf child. My gaze fell upon Ashu rummaging through things in the corner. So this is the origin of that cold-faced, taciturn colleague from my past life who was fierce in fights. I wonder how His Highness managed to pick him up. Ashuo rummaged through the withered grass for a long time before finally finding what he was looking for. With great care, he placed it in my hands. It was an old, worn brocade pouch. Judging by the embroidery, it was about as skillfully made as my own poor attempts. The fabric looks quite good, somewhat resembling the new styles brought to the Eastern Palace this year. I opened it and shook it out. Inside were some dried herbs I didn't recognize. What is this? Ashuo pointed at me. then stammered, repaying a favor, I thought. Perhaps this sachet is related to the Eastern Palace. Did he smell a similar scent on me and follow me because of that? Piecing things together, I arrived at a vague conclusion. Someone from the Eastern Palace once saved Ashuo and left this sachet. I frequently visited the Eastern Palace, thus carrying a similar scent. Ashuo noticed and wanted to follow me back to repay the kindness, lost in thought. Ashuo had already formed a complete sentence. Name, he said. I follow you. I froze for a moment. Then you shall be called Ashuo. Ashuo was still staring at me, wanting to know why. A sudden idea struck me. Because today is the first day of the lunar month. In a past life, Ashuo was picked up by His Highness. This name was naturally given by His Highness as well. I didn't know what it meant, so I had to use it mechanically. Ashuo, I whispered softly, I am Yunling. Would you return to the Eastern Palace with me to protect His Highness together? Just like in our past life, let us follow His Highness together, be his shield, and also the sharpest blade in his hand. 35. When I returned to the cave, Duan Chongfeng was already gone, having failed to kill me tonight and seeing I had reinforcements, fearing my retaliation, he naturally fled overnight. My forehead was still burning hot. Seeing Ashuo guarding the cave entrance, I drifted into a drowsy sleep. I was startled awake by the sensation of something wet and rough against my palm. Raising my eyes, I saw Ashu kneeling before me, licking my hand. There was a deep wound there, almost reaching the bone. These recent sweltering days have prevented it from healing properly. Ashuo, I exclaimed in shock, what are you do? The next moment, I saw him spit out a pile of green, wet grass residue with a wah sound. It smoothed out in the palm of my hand, so it was applying medicine. I closed my eyes with indescribable complexity, trying to withdraw my hand. The wound, Ashu stared at me persistently. It could be fatal. He buried his head and then grunted while applying medicine. I thought with utter despair, a child raised among wolves will indeed inherit their habits. In his previous life, how on earth did His Highness manage to mold him into that rigid personality? 36. At night, my fever spiked again, over and over. I dreamed of Your Highness from the past, pale, gaunt, racked with illness, drifting from place to place. In my feverish haze, I heard footsteps again. Ashuo was pacing anxiously back and forth tonight. In the end, he still went looking for grass, turning back every few steps. Presumably, it was him returning. I opened my eyes, doubting whether I was hallucinating. Otherwise, how could I have seen the young prince? He looked at me with deep concern, no longer appearing as pale and sickly as before. His hair was strewn with grass blades. Looking somewhat weary, yet his crimson robes blazed brightly, unable to conceal the youthful vitality within. The madam of the Spring Breeze Pavilion also loved dressing Feng Ling in red clothes, like sheer gauze, extravagant yet decadent, but they were shoddily made, rubbing against the skin until allergic blood spots appeared. Suddenly, my tears began to fall. That's how it is. This is exactly how the young lord should look. The young lord should wear such luxurious and soft red garments. Seeing my tears, the young lord before me seemed somewhat flustered. Ling, he helplessly wiped away my tears. I thought, heaven must have taken pity. This dream feels too real. Young Highness, I whispered softly, may I give you a hug? As soon as the words left my mouth, I smiled self-deprecatingly. Indeed, only in dreams would I dare make such an improper request. The young prince froze in surprise. Without waiting for his reply, I raised my hand and lightly encircled him, treasuring the moment. Not daring to hold too tight, I thought, since this is a dream, then let me indulge just this once. 37. After returning from the autumn hunt, Nanzhao presented another peerless beauty. She captivated the emperor's heart, making him linger with her night after night. In just half a month, she was promoted to the rank of concubine. With the title Zhen, I secretly sent people to investigate concubine Zhen's background. She was discovered to be noble Lady Rong's close friend from her maiden days. Her entry into the palace was likely for the sake of this old friend's son. First, there was Duan Chongfeng's close relationship with Xiaoxia. Later, consort Zhen became the most favored in the imperial harem. The queen sensed something amiss, urging His Highness to marry the crown princess to gain allies and support. On this day, I was summoned to the Phoenix Palace. Upon entering the hall, I saw the queen bow deeply and perform a grand salute to me. I helped her up in astonishment. Your Majesty. The Empress interrupted me. Over these years, the goddess's beauty remains unchanged, while fine lines have appeared at the corners of my eyes. I don't understand what she means, the queen said softly. The goddess's great kindness. This palace has not dared to forget for a single day, but mortal life is short, merely a fleeting 100 years, goddess, please spare him. There's no need to say who him refers to in these words, my mind went completely blank, even forgetting to breathe. I think the Empress has noticed my personal feelings towards His Highness. The look in your Highness's eyes is far from innocent. I suddenly felt ashamed, averting my gaze, not daring to look at the Empress. Okay, I nearly fled in panic. Yet at the palace gates, I unexpectedly encountered Qin Wan coming to pay respects to the Empress. Her face was full of worry. Why is the goddess's face so pale? Could it be that she was scolded by the Empress? I raised my eyebrows coldly. Miss Qin, mind your words. Speaking ill of the Empress, beware His Majesty punishes you. You. Qin Wan stomped her foot in anger. You dare threaten me. I'll report this to Her Majesty the Empress. Distractedly, I made a gesture of invitation. Excuse me, 38, in front of the stargazing pavilion, I spotted that furtive figure from afar. I paused mid-step, then turned away without a word. Don't you dare leave. His Highness rushed forward in quick strides to catch up. Just like when we were children, he tugged at my sleeve, like an abandoned little beast, aggrieved and bewildered. Why are you avoiding me? I lowered my eyes and spoke softly. Your Highness has overstepped, taking advantage of his days. I slowly pulled my sleeve back from his grasp. I curtsied and turned to leave. Ling, I hardened my heart and pretended not to hear, yet I heard him ask again in a pitiful voice, Ling, where's my sachet? Only after returning from the autumn hunt did I realize that night was not a dream. His Highness had truly come. I recalled my impolite behavior that night. I prepared myself for His Highness's anger or distance. Yet unexpectedly, he grew even closer to me. He pestered me for days, insisting I make him a sachet, for something His Highness wants, only the finest will do. I selected the most fashionable brocade from the Eastern Palace treasury and learned embroidery techniques from the seamstresses. After several sleepless nights, I barely finished it when the Empress summoned me, so it's been hidden in my sleeve all along, never given away. I averted my eyes, my voice tight. I'm sorry, I forgot. Behind me came the young man's persistent questioning. Do you still remember that you promised to accompany me to the Lantern Festival tonight? I kept walking without looking back. I'm sorry, 39, I deceived your Highness. I still intend to go to the Lantern Festival, just not with him, for today is the death anniversary of His Highness from a past life. His Highness was born into luxury. In his youth he wore fine silks and rode spirited horses, adored lanterns and fireworks, and reveled in splendor. Such a man. Yet he died on a bitterly cold snowy night, so I thought I would pick the finest lantern for him. I truly saw such a lamp. The paper was painted with phoenix patterns, layered with fine gauze outside, soft and hazy. It was hung on the highest pavilion in the Eastern Market, like a pearl falling into the night. Young lady, the lanterns hanging in the attic are not for sale. Seeing me take out my purse, the shopkeeper stopped me with a smile. He pointed to the crowded pavilion in the distance. Climb the pavilion for a contest. The winner may take the lanterns. I climbed up to the attic and breathed a sigh of relief. The competition among the crowd was archery. Suddenly, a charming female voice came from behind. Your Excellency the Divine Maiden, you've come to enjoy the Lantern Festival too. Qin Wan wore a lotus pink Ruchuan dress, cradling a rabbit lantern in her arms. Following my gaze, she noticed that phoenix flower lantern. Suddenly, she let out a light, mocking laugh. It seems the goddess truly adores phoenixes. She pulled a square handkerchief from her sleeve and unfolded it before me. I was stunned. It was the very handkerchief I had once given to His Highness. Embroidered on it was that clumsy phoenix mistaken for a rooster. Back at the hunting grounds, I was still puzzled. One would expect His Highness's belongings to be of the finest quality. How could there be such a crudely made handkerchief? Now that I think about it, was it perhaps embroidered by the goddess? I frowned. How did it end up in your hands? Qin Wan smiled and said, naturally, it was a gift from your Highness. In the future, I shall be the crown princess. As husband and wife are one, which of your Highness's possessions wouldn't be mine to choose from? She warned with a beaming smile. As for the Divine Maiden, though she is a person beyond worldly affairs, she should still understand the boundaries between men and women. After your Highness gets married, you won't be able to freely come and go from the Eastern Palace anymore. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded from behind. Since when did I ever give you a handkerchief? I don't recall such a thing. Qin Wan turned her head in astonishment. His Highness's eyes turned icy as he chuckled coldly. Miss Qin seems rather overeager, attempting to meddle in the Eastern Palace affairs already. Did this crown prince grant permission? Qin Wan's face changed expressions faster than an acrobatic troupe, tears welled up in her eyes, on the verge of falling. Brother Crown Prince, I didn't mean it that way, changing the subject again, invoking the Empress to pressure others. Tonight, it was Her Majesty the Empress who sent me to find you, over there. My number had already been called for the competition. I stood up and took my bow. Qin Wan whispered her complaint. Your Highness, Wan wants that lantern too. If your Highness wins it back for me, I won't tell Her Majesty that you abandoned me tonight. Deal. His Highness remained silent. He picked up another bow and came to stand beside me. I glanced at him. My heart feels heavy. Your Highness, are you trying to snatch the lantern from me? No. He shook his head earnestly. Half of his cheek was bathed in lantern light, glowing like warm jade, even more radiant than the moon in the sky. Young hearts cannot conceal their thoughts. Affection escapes through the eyes, scattering like stardust. His Highness said, do you like that carp lantern? I'll win it for you. 40. Clutching the phoenix lantern I'd won, I fled as if escaping. I dared not dwell on the look in His Highness's eyes. A dull string within me was plucked. My heart pounded like a drum, suddenly giving rise to an inconceivable delusion. Would His Highness perhaps also like me? The thought startled me so much I bit my tongue. The taste of blood spread through my mouth. His Highness and I are as different as clouds and mud. I wouldn't dare. I sat down by the moat. The phoenix lantern drifted away with the water, bobbing and swaying. This lantern is beautiful. I wonder if His Highness from my past life will receive it. My eyes grew moist. Your Highness, I whispered silently in my heart, I will protect the young prince, ensuring his happiness and a smooth sailing life. I swear. When I opened my eyes again, I was startled by the scene on the water. Behind that phoenix lantern, a plump koi lantern had appeared unnoticed. Following behind was a string of duck lanterns, rabbit lanterns, clamshell lanterns, and bird lanterns, packed tightly together. It was a lively spectacle. I widened my eyes in astonishment. The young man panted heavily, wiping sweat with his sleeve. His eyes were bright, his face full of innocence. I didn't know what kind of lantern you'd like, so I won them all for you. His Highness stirred the water and placed the last lotus lantern. Before I could speak, they interjected, Ailing, don't send me away. I just saw you sitting here alone releasing lanterns, and suddenly felt very sad. He tilted his head slightly, studying the expression on my face by the moonlight. Can you tell me who you're giving this lamp to? I lowered my gaze and whispered, an old friend more precious than life itself. His Highness fell silent. After a long pause, he suddenly spoke, as if explaining, I will make it clear to the Empress Dowager, my heart belongs to another. I will not marry Qin Wan. Ailing, I just want to ask you one thing. Your Highness gazed into my eyes, speaking softly. Do you harbor even the slightest affection for this lonely one? The question was posed lightly, yet I saw his hand hidden in the sleeve clenched tightly. The light in his eyes was frighteningly bright, as if with just my nod, he would turn his back to shield me, against the Empress, against the entire world. But Your Highness, I don't need you to stand against anyone for me. I just want to see you live a smooth and successful life. Your Highness, I heard my own voice. It echoed in the night wind, devoid of any emotion. It's getting late. Miss Qin is still waiting for you. Facing His Highness's incredulous gaze, I forced a smile. You should go back now. Your Highness, when Ashua found me at the stargazing tower, I got completely drunk. Who would have thought that Miaofa, who appears so proper on the surface, secretly stashes away quite a collection of fine wines? He didn't have time to drink it, so in the end, I got to enjoy it. The world is spinning. Ashua frowned as he lifted me up from the ground, cold. I hadn't seen Ashua for a long time. As soon as he returned, he volunteered to train at the Shadow Guard camp. When asked why, the young man muttered sullenly, saying only that he had lost a fight with the Imperial Guard commander. For over a decade, he had been undefeated in the mountains and forests. To suffer defeat now was nothing short of a humiliating disgrace. Groggily, I lifted my eyelids. The former wild wolf boy is now dressed neatly and cleanly. The black martial attire outlines his broad shoulders and long legs. Rumor has it he's charmed many young palace maids. I was dragged onto the high platform by Ashuo. Looking up, the bright moon hangs in the sky, yet I recall your profile under the lamplight. Your Highness, do you harbor even a shred of affection for this lonely one? I do. I opened my eyes, murmuring to myself. Ashu was looking around for a blanket for me. He didn't hear clearly and let out a puzzled sound from his nose. Suddenly, tears streamed down my face like rain. I love the moon. 41. His Highness never came to the stargazing pavilion again. In the past, it was I who avoided him, now the roles have reversed. It's become him hiding from me. Gradually, rumors spread through the palace about discord between the Divine Maiden and His Highness. One day when the Eastern Palace was decorated with lanterns, I learned that the Empress had consulted the eminent monk from Daxiangwo Temple to match the marriage horoscopes. His Highness will soon be taking a crown princess. At night, I gaze from the highest point of the stargazing pavilion, always seeing the faint glow of lamplight from the Eastern Palace. Your Highness's figure stands beneath the candlelight, so near at hand, yet so far beyond reach. In another half-month, the Nanzhao envoy delegation will arrive in the capital. I met Xiaozhe at the palace gate. He had just finished speaking with an envoy. His eyes shifted, and his gaze fell upon me. The person said hypocritically, "I heard that during the autumn hunt, the goddess was chasing a wild rabbit and accidentally fell off a cliff. How careless indeed." I glanced at the somewhat nervous Nanzhao envoy in the distance and let out a light chuckle. Wouldn't it sound rather unseemly if word got out that the second prince was colluding with foreign envoys? Xiaozhe laughed. His Majesty has already appointed me as the ceremonial official for this occasion, jointly responsible for the envoy affairs with the Court of State Ceremonial. This is strictly official business. How could it be called collusion? He looked at me with a half-smile. It always made me feel like he harbored ill intentions. Among the Nanzhao delegation this time, there were many spirited young men. After watching the polo match, they clamored to have a game of their own. The capital city is teeming with polo-playing young aristocrats. In the imperial court, Xiaozhe singularly recommended Your Highness to take up the challenge. The polo field offers countless opportunities for foul play. Every year, countless people suffer falls from horses, broken arms, or fractured legs due to accidents, death or disability. Your Majesty, you must not. I suddenly spoke up. A person of noble status should not risk danger. Your Highness the Crown Prince. Yet a dark figure leaped over me. Your son wishes to share Your Majesty's burdens. A sharp burning sensation suddenly shot through my wrist. I looked at the kneeling prince beside me, my mind in a daze. Duan Chongfeng's gaze swept between us. Then, he also volunteered for the mission. This humble general also wishes to share Your Majesty's burdens. 42. I understood the source of the burning pain on my wrist. That cinnabar mole has faded again. The ominous premonition reached its peak on the day of the polo match. Before that day, I had arranged many hidden guards and anticipated various ways His Highness might be harmed. How should I stop it, and how should I protect him? All the plans became useless the moment I stepped out of the stargazing tower. The cinnabar mole on my wrist burned frighteningly hot. The next moment, the world spun around me. I fell into the snow in a most undignified manner, startled the drowsy little guard. "Who goes there?" The cold spear tip pressed against my neck. I looked up in shock, startling the young guard. And Yunling, a long unheard form of address. I looked around, then my gaze froze. This was the very spot where His Highness took his own life in my past existence. I'm back. The moment the thought arose, I ran towards Weiyang Hall like a madman. The young guard cried in alarm, "And Yunling, you can't go in, too late." 99 eternal lamps burn quietly, illuminating the dim hall as bright as day. The portrait of His Highness after his enthronement is enshrined high at the rear. I stood dumbfounded, gazing upward at the figure in the painting. He was indifferent and pale, his eyes devoid of both sorrow and joy. My tears fell once again, and Yunling, the new emperor, gazed at me with concern. "He is the imperial clansman personally chosen by His Highness," I said woodenly. "This portrait wasn't well selected." "What about the portrait from when the late emperor was crown prince?" The new emperor froze. He looked at me, my face streaked with tears. Nearly driven to madness, unable to bear it, he said, "When the late emperor was still in his princely residence, he was once deposed, and all his old belongings were burned. This is the only surviving portrait of the late emperor." I asked again, "Where is the late emperor buried?" The new emperor fell silent. I looked at the chief eunuch behind him. "Speak." The chief eunuch gritted his teeth. The late emperor's decree was to have his body cremated to ashes and scattered into the rivers after death. May both body and soul perish, never to be reborn as human again through all eternity. Boom, like a thunderclap exploding in my mind. Clutching my chest, I vomited a mouthful of blood with a guh sound. Tears fell like rain. I'm in so much pain, but I can't make a sound when crying. Kneeling on the ground, my whole body convulsing, I realized that the person I love exists in a future time and space. It has truly vanished into thin air. He holds no attachment to this life or this world, nor will he ever receive that phoenix lantern I won back that night. I curled my fingers slightly. What can one truly grasp hold of? Only the menacing shadows cast by the eternal lamp can be caught. The new emperor could bear it no longer, sighing softly, "Aunt, please restrain your grief." The candlelight flickers in my eyes. Growing brighter and brighter, my vision turns white, but in an instant, a clear child's voice rings in my ears. "Yun, Ling, goddess, why do you have this name?" "Little Highness, I think, and Little Highness still needs me. But how can I go back?" I staggered to my feet, stumbling, trying to return to that snowy field, yet in the next moment, consciousness was lost. 43, I spent 7 years in the past. Time wheeled on. And here too, 7 years had passed. The palace servants whispered among themselves, saying Aunt Yunling who disappeared 7 years ago had returned, so the first thought that came to my mind when I woke up was, the flow of time is the same, it's too late, I need to hurry back, return to the polo field, return to His Highness's side. I went to the great Xianghua temple, only to learn of the fat monk's passing. A scabby-headed monk stood before me. He is the disciple of the fat monk and a grand disciple of Miaofa, with just one glance. He chanted a Buddhist invocation, "Patron, there remains unresolved karma upon you." This was brought by a noble from the palace, the last Zaodianhong peony of this spring, to the benefactor, severing karmic ties. "What karmic ties nonsense," I urgently said, "I must return to the 20th year of Jianing. Do you have a way?" The scabby-headed monk examined me thoroughly from head to toe, suddenly clapped his hands and laughed. "Fascinating, truly fascinating. The chain of karma upon you, donor, links one ring to another, yet none can tell where it begins." I froze. "What do you mean?" The scabby monk didn't answer, only smiled. "Patron, you once had a karmic connection with my grandmaster. Today, this humble monk shall escort you on your journey." He patted my shoulder, and the world spun before my eyes once more. I fell back into the stargazing pavilion. "Goddess, oh great goddess." The panicked face of the palace maid came into clear focus before my eyes. Fighting off dizziness, I grasped the maid's hand. "What time is it now? Has the polo match ended? Is His Highness the Crown Prince still safe?" The maid looked bewildered, not understanding why I was so frantic. "The polo match has concluded, and your Highness has taken the top honor." Frowning, I struggled to recall. "I haven't heard of your Highness being injured." I breathed a sigh of relief. A thought suddenly emerged in my heart. Your Highness might not need my protection anymore in the future. My little prince has unknowingly grown into someone who can stand on his own. I promised long ago that I would protect your Highness until the day he no longer needed it. I never expected this day to come so soon that it leaves me both relieved and bewildered. A burning pain shoots through my wrist again. The scenery before me begins to sway once more. I clenched my tongue. The taste of blood bringing me back to my senses, I lowered my gaze. That cinnabar mole had faded further. It was reminding me, time was running out, but the enemies from my past life still remained unresolved. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. A figure gradually became clear in my mind. The maid exclaimed in delight, "Goddess, are you going to see the Crown Prince?" "No," I flatly denied. "No. The person I'm looking for is someone else." 44. During this period, there have been rumors in the palace that the Crown Prince and the Divine Maiden are at odds. Duan Chongfeng had clearly heard quite a few. He blocked me at the palace gate several times. Each time, the words he spoke were more or less the same. "Your Highness is about to marry a crown princess, yet I still lack a marquise. Don't be so quick to refuse. With the support of the Duke's estate, why would your Highness still need the Divine Maiden? A fine bird chooses a tree to nest in. If you come to understand this, you may seek me out anytime. I greatly admire you. We would make exceptional allies for each other." He looks deeply affectionate, as if it weren't him who repeatedly tried to kill me at the cliff's base months ago. Every time, I succinctly tell him to get lost, but now, I don't have time anymore. I can only settle this quickly. So this time, it became me blocking Duan Chongfeng at the palace gate. Upon seeing me, his eyebrows lifted slightly. Before he could make a sarcastic remark, I spoke quickly. "I agree." Duan Chongfeng touched my neck and smiled. There were bruises left where he once tried to strangle me. A wise man submits to circumstances. "If you knew it would come to this, why did you fight me so desperately before?" This was the scene His Highness witnessed upon arrival. Poria, my heart skipped a beat. Dodging Duan Chongfeng's hand, I guiltily averted my eyes. "Your Highness." The dark hem of the robe draped before me. His Highness wore archery riding attire today, looking dashing and heroic. My thoughts were in turmoil when I heard His Highness ask, "Why didn't you come to watch my polo match today?" I fell silent for a moment before speaking softly, "But your Highness can do just fine without me. I've always known this. He is a phoenix soaring through the heavens. Not a canary caged for my sake. One day, he will leave my protection and fly to a broader world." Before His Highness could speak again, Duan Changfeng pulled me behind him. "Ailing is my fiancé. Please do not overstep, Your Highness." 45. Duan Changfeng often summoned me to the marquis residence. Sometimes it was for discussing affairs, other times just casual conversation, which he called strengthening the alliance. The benefits of allying with him soon became apparent. That day, while searching for an ancient text in his study, footsteps suddenly echoed from outside. More than one person. I instinctively hid behind the brocade screen, until Duan Changfeng started talking with that person. Only then did I realize that person was Xiaozhe. He came to discuss the rebellion with Duan Changfeng. He said the emperor had been secretly poisoned by consort Jin, leaving his health in ruins. Nanzhao has already secretly rebelled. The real General Jinan died long ago. What stands now is their impostor. The attendants in this diplomatic mission to the capital are all disguised as death warriors, capable of fighting 1 against 100. Outside the city, a troop of elite soldiers is secretly stationed. He hopes Duan Changfeng will cooperate with him from inside, opening the city gates when the time comes to let people in. Secondly, the Duan family possesses half of the Tiger Tally, and he also wishes to obtain this advantage. Once he ascends the throne, he will share the empire with Duan Changfeng. Duan Changfeng agreed to everything. Only after Xiaozhe left did he lazily speak up. "Come out." My heart skipped a beat. I emerged from behind the embroidered screen, pretending nothing had happened. "I came here to look for a book." I waved the ancient tome in my hand, indicating I truly hadn't meant to eavesdrop. Duan Changfeng looked at me with leisurely composure. "You don't actually think I'd follow this idiot in rebellion, do you?" He sneered. "He's courting death himself and wants to drag me down with him. Utterly foolish." I forced a flattering smile. "Young Marquis is most wise." The next moment, a tremendous force struck my shoulder. My lower back slammed hard against the corner of the table, and I let out a muffled groan. "You, goddess." In the cramped space, Duan Changfeng leaned in, firmly pinning me down. "Regarding the alliance, I've already shown you my sincerity. What about yours?" His hand pressed against my belt. I gritted my teeth. "Wait." Duan Changfeng looked at me with a pair of smiling yet not smiling eyes. "Is the goddess perhaps trying to get something for nothing?" I calmly raised my eyes, speaking nonsense with a straight face. "Why the hurry, young Marquis? Once we become husband and wife, you can share in my longevity. A goddess's lifespan is endless. If you don't believe me, ask anyone in the palace. Over these past 10 years, has my appearance aged even slightly?" Duan Changfeng swallowed hard, his resolve wavered slightly. "Got hooked. I'll keep making things up. But before that, I must burn incense and pray to the heavens." Fighting back nausea, I slowly grasped the hand at my waist. If one could truly live forever and enjoy endless power, why rush for momentary pleasures? Don't you agree, young Marquis? 46. Soon, news of the emperor's critical illness spread through the palace. Duan Changfeng received the secret signal and opened the city gates as promised, allowing the men to enter. Xiaozhe led his troops and successfully stormed into the imperial palace. Everything went surprisingly smoothly, until the palace gates closed behind them. Hearing the commotion, Xiaozhe realized something was wrong, but it was already too late. A vast army surrounded them. Duan Changfeng saw the prince leading troops from the opposite side. He turned to look at me and suddenly smiled. "Did you send him the message?" I shook my head. "It wasn't me. Such a big commotion couldn't possibly escape His Highness's notice." Duan Changfeng let out an "Oh." "If I find out you're betraying us, I won't let you off easy." The prince's eyes swept over with a cold glance. "Young Marquis Duan, now is not the time to compete for credit," he said coldly. "Right now, suppressing the rebellion is the main priority." My fingers curled slightly as I averted my gaze. This rebel army was completely annihilated before they could even make waves. I caught the fleeing Xiaozhe in the cold palace. This desolate palace nearly trapped him throughout his youth. When he had nowhere left to turn, he chose to return here. "Did you think I couldn't find you?" I held the longsword, eyeing the dust-covered Xiaozhe. He clutched the bloody hole in his abdomen. "Do you hate me this much?" I lifted his chin with the tip of my sword. "Do you remember what I told you 7 years ago? If you refuse to live in disgrace, then killing you is not unacceptable." I am a man who always keeps his promises. Xiaozhi's blood was nearly drained, his eyes were filled with madness. I'm just unwilling to accept this. In both literary grace and military strategy, in what way am I inferior to Xiao Qi? But the emperor would never let the son of a barbarian woman ascend the throne, speaking with agitation. He leaned against some grassy bricks and coughed incessantly. So from the very beginning, I was disqualified from competing for the throne. No matter how well I performed, no matter how much the Grand Tutor praised me, the emperor would never spare me a second glance. But why does Xiao Qi get everything I've struggled for so desperately, right from birth? Tell me, shouldn't I hate him? I tilted my head. What does your resentment have to do with me? Whoever wronged you? You can simply kill them. But your highness has never failed you in the slightest. You had no right whatsoever to trample on someone's sincere feelings, I said coldly. Also, you're not as clever as you think you are. Just look at this rebellion attempt. The execution was utterly amateurish. Don't even claim you're inferior to his highness in either strategy or martial prowess. You dare say it, but I'm embarrassed to hear it. You are indeed arrogant and utterly worthless. Xiaozhi was so enraged that he vomited blood. The gleaming sword light pierced his throat. It should have ended long ago. 47. The emperor fell gravely ill. A religious ceremony will be held in the palace to pray for blessings. I was ordered to select an auspicious date and oversee this grand prayer ceremony. These days, the cinnabar mole on my wrist has faded almost to invisibility. My mind keeps wandering, constantly feeling like I'll be sent back to the future any moment. There's no time left. A voice keeps reminding me over and over in my heart, there's no time left. This night, I watched the clouds from the high platform, gazing at the sky. A plan suddenly took shape in my mind. The next day, I went to the Marquis's residence. Duan Chongfeng heard about my purpose for coming. He seemed somewhat incredulous. You're saying you want me to perform a sword dance on the altar during the blessing ceremony? I nodded without changing my expression. First, His Majesty's grave illness is caused by evil forces invading his body. The young Marquis, being valiant, will surely dispel these malevolent spirits and protect the imperial health. Second, do you remember what I said earlier, young Marquis, since we are to be wed and share eternal life, we must first make offerings to heaven and earth to inform the deities. Duan Chongfeng was so delighted by my coaxing that he agreed. Since he agreed so readily, it's only natural I should repay him in some way. His sword broke during the rebellion suppression, so I'm preparing to gift him a fine sword for his ceremonial dance at the altar. The date for the grand ceremony remains undecided. The emperor's chief eunuch has come to urge us several times. Each time, I managed to send him away with mystical murmurs. The chosen location is at Chaoga Mountain in the outskirts of the capital. I'd been observing celestial phenomena every night, all for selecting another auspicious date. The offerings, ceremonial robes, and altar are all prepared. Everything is ready, just waiting for the auspicious day I proclaimed. Finally, one evening, I sent someone to deliver a message to the Hall of Mental Cultivation. It shall be tomorrow. Rubbing my sore, swollen eyes, I descended from the stargazing pavilion, only to stumble upon a thoroughly drunken prince. Hearing the noise, he buried himself in my arms. Don't you dare leave. Seems like he's been lying in wait here for quite some time. I obediently stopped in my tracks, only to hear him whimper pitifully. Today is my birthday. I've been waiting for you here for so long. You didn't come. I was stunned. These days I've been so busy observing celestial phenomena that I actually forgot his birthday. Before I could speak, His Highness interrupted in a muffled voice. I don't want to hear I'm sorry. Silence fell between us. This is your Highness's 17th birthday. In his previous life, this was the year he hit rock bottom, betrayed, dethroned, trampled upon. But not now, not in this life, never again. The prince in my arms closed his eyes, as if drunk and passed out. I quietly summoned the palace maid, preparing to send the prince back. Then I heard him whisper softly, Ailing. He didn't sleep. I whispered softly, I'm here. Don't go with him. Okay, whatever you desire, I can give it to you. Don't do this. It's like making a pact with the devil. I didn't say anything. Soon, your highness, I thought to myself, soon, everything will be over. 48. On the day of the blessing ceremony, the sky was clear and boundless. I offered prayers on the high platform of Chaoga Mountain. Duan Chongfeng, clad in silver armor, swung the heavy black greatsword with formidable power. The crowd knelt and prostrated on the ground. Only His Highness frowned, gazing at the distant sky. All the upheaval occurred at that very moment. a pitch-black cloud suddenly appeared on the distant horizon. Boom, a thunderclap exploded in everyone's ears, rain poured down without any wind. A terrified voice suddenly rang out from the crowd below the stage. What's wrong with young Marquis Duan Chongfeng, who had just been performing swordplay, collapsed to the ground. Convulsing uncontrollably, wisps of black smoke began emanating from his body. The sword I had gone to great lengths to obtain was now split in two. Feigning panic, I cried, "Young Marquis, what's wrong with you?" Duan Chongfeng's hair stood on end, his eyes were wide open. "You, how dare you?" I turned my face slightly and gave him a faint smile. "I dare." A sea of blood and deep hatred, not a single day dared to forget. Turn around, kneeling in terror. A thunderclap in broad daylight. This is divine punishment. The people I had arranged in the crowd instantly prostrated themselves, following my fearful kowtowing. Beg the gods to calm their wrath. Beg the gods to calm their wrath. More and more people were being drawn in. Some members of the Duan family were both shocked and angry, raising objections. "Goddess, is this the auspicious date you chose?" Yet these faint voices of doubt were quickly drowned out by more cries of repentance. The torrential rain poured down, soaking me completely. Strands of hair clung to my cheeks as I raised my eyes to the heavens, but the sky remained silent. In that fleeting glance, I clearly saw your highness's expression. He said, "You're insane," as if I wouldn't know. With so many witnesses watching, Duan Chongfeng died. I cannot shirk responsibility. I'm out of time. I originally had many ways to proceed slowly, killing without a trace, so I wouldn't need to take such risks, but I'm out of time. Then it occurred to me, truly, the apprentice surpasses the master. I once taught him to observe clouds and predict rain. Among all present, only he noticed this celestial phenomenon, but none of this matters anymore. I lowered my gaze. The cinnabar mole on my wrist had completely vanished. All the wolves, jackals, tigers, and leopards blocking his path have perished. In this life, he will never shed tears again. 49. The Duan family never intended to let me live past today. They couldn't wait for me to descend the mountain, seeking to kill me amidst the chaos. The ceremonial robes were cumbersome. Clutching my wide sleeves and awkwardly holding up the skirt hem, I fled through the mountain forest. Before I realized it, I was forced back to the cliff's edge. The glint of blades inched closer. In a daze, I leaped off the cliff. Behind me came a heart-wrenching Yun Ling. Seeing me fall off the cliff, he actually tried to jump down after me. But the guards who arrived later scrambled to pull him back. "I'm sorry, Your Highness, in the end, I had to make you sad one more time." During the rapid descent, a red light illuminated my eyes. It is that radiant palace blossom, mid-air. It follows my descent, as if gazing back at me. Once more, the scabby monk's voice whispers by my ear, "This was brought by a noble from the palace. The last palace-illuminating red bloom of this spring, bestowed upon you, benefactor, to sever karmic ties." The howling wind roared past one's ears. The scabby-headed monk clapped his hands and laughed heartily. The karmic ties upon this benefactor form interlocking rings, yet none can tell where they begin. If this is my karma, my destined fate, I fear it not. I reached out and grasped that radiant peony. Tick-tock, I fell from a great height, like a drop of water from the clouds, falling back into the river's flow. Upstream in the long river of time. 50. The world spins violently. The soil beneath me is soft as I land back on the ground. Something pricks my cheek, sharp and stinging. Spring grass sways gently, filling my vision. In the distance, palace maids and eunuchs knelt in prostration across the ground. The empress helped me up, unable to conceal her excitement. The gods have manifested, the immortals have revealed themselves. I blinked in confusion. The queen before me appeared to be in her early 20s. Her raven hair flowed like clouds, looking remarkably youthful. Did I travel back in time? My gaze swept across the surroundings, the altar, offerings, musicians, and high priests, belatedly realizing that some sacrificial ceremony was being held in the palace. The empress grasped my hand. "Has the immortal come specially in response to this palace's prayers?" I was still wearing the elaborate and magnificent ceremonial robe from the. It does seem possible to be mistaken for a deity. Meeting the empress's eager gaze, I cleared my throat lightly, feigning composure. "I happened to pass by while traveling and came to investigate upon hearing the music. What does your majesty seek?" Upon hearing this, the empress attempted to perform a grand bow to me. "I beg of you, immortal one, save my child." I flusteredly helped her up. Only then did I notice the slight bulge in the empress's abdomen. She was already several months pregnant. the Empress had borne only one child, His Highness the Crown Prince. My pupils contracted sharply, nearly unable to believe it. Meanwhile, the Empress had already explained the whole story from beginning to end. It is currently the 3rd year of Jianing. The Empress was poisoned by villains during her pregnancy. By the time it was discovered, it was too late. The toxins had already penetrated the fetus's body. The imperial physician only had time to remove the toxins from the mother's body. As for the rest, there's nothing more to be done. It was only said that if the poison couldn't be neutralized within 100 days of the child's birth, once the poison reaches the heart and lungs, death is certain. With tearful eyes, the Empress pleaded, Immortal One, is there a solution? I fell silent for a moment. Your Majesty need not worry. I have a solution. In the previous life after ascending the throne, His Highness's chronic illness proved incurable, and his health deteriorated day by day. I inquired everywhere and learned that in Nanzhao there was a moon god herb capable of curing all ailments, so I sent someone to seek it. Who would have thought that the only news to come was that the moon god grass had been taken by 2 Central Plains people over 20 years ago, calculating by the current timeline. The moon god grass is most likely still in Nanzhao. If I act quickly, I might be able to get there before those two. The Queen received my affirmative reply, so excited that I didn't know what to do. With tears in her eyes, she shyly pressed my hand against her belly. Don't be afraid, cheer, she said gently. The Queen Mother has invited immortals to save you. My hands were stiffer than wood. The next moment, the Queen's belly twitched. A very light touch brushed against my palm. I nearly shed tears. 51. I'm going to Nanzhao to seek medicine. Just after leaving the city, I met a monk. Because I didn't pay, the shopkeeper chased me for 10 blocks, all the way out of the city. When I saw him, he was squatting under the city wall, on the verge of tears, drawing circles. Master, I don't want to travel anymore. I want to go back to the temple. The shopkeeper pinched his ear fiercely. Cut the crap. 10 steamers of buns. No payment, no leaving. The monk felt wronged. The master said we don't need to pay when collecting alms in town. The shopkeeper flew into a rage. Have you ever seen a monk eat meat buns? You fake monk. Pay me back. I can't stand it anymore. The monk's figure seemed vaguely familiar, as if I'd seen him somewhere before, so I fished out a silver ingot from my robe and tossed it over. The shopkeeper beamed as he caught the silver ingot. Before leaving, I fiercely threatened the monk again. You cheater, if I see you again, I'll break your legs. The monk made whimpering sounds. I sighed and was about to leave. The monk suddenly looked up. Those were eyes that could be called stunning, clear and bright, like mountain snow and dew on leaves. I've seen this person before. The monk smiled and said, This humble monk is Miaofa. Greetings to you. I've been pestered by Miaofa. This person was riding a donkey, clip-clopping along behind my horse, chirping and chattering, even noisier than sparrows. I numbly closed my eyes. Along the way, I've thoroughly investigated his background, or so he claims. For instance, he's a 15-year-old monk from the great Xianghua temple. The abbot said he was fated not to live past 25. Might as well let him descend the mountain to wander the world. This man lived by the creed that life is short, so seize pleasure while you can. Just 1 month after descending, he broke his vows and swaggered into a gambling den, lost all the silver, then went everywhere begging for alms. And very picky too, refusing vegetable buns and only eating meat buns. Meanwhile, Miaofa was still chattering away. The little monk suddenly thought, I've never tasted wine before. Yunling, when are you taking this little monk to steal some wine? I couldn't take it anymore. Why does it have to be stealing? Miaofa said righteously, because it's both thrilling and breaks the precepts. I remained silent for a long moment before speaking with difficulty. Can I ask you a question? Please go ahead, benefactor, Miaofa said with a smile. This humble monk will speak without reservation and hold nothing back. I'm breaking down. Why are you following me? Is it because following me is exciting and breaking the rules? Miaofa shakes her head. You're the only one who's paid me any attention since I came down the mountain. So, this monk has decided to follow you. How can this person be so shameless? 52. With the wondrous method at hand, we journeyed day and night. Doubly exhausted, spring passed and summer came. It had been a month since leaving the capital. I looked at the map, then at the mountain forest before me. Finally, with despair, I confirmed that we had taken the wrong path. To reach Nanzhao, one should head southwest, yet we were traveling due west. We arrived at Bailu Mountain. Miaofa poked my shoulder. The voice was cautious. Yunling, do you think that black thing with green eyes ahead is edible? I looked up impatiently. What nonsense are you spouting, AG? My voice abruptly cut off. Beneath the moonlight, within the mountain forest, dozens of pairs of eerie green eyes locked onto us. I gasped in shock. Miofa remained completely unaware of the danger and began counting on his fingers, one for grilling, one for roasting, and one for... A vein throbbed at my temple as I stomped hard on his foot. It could eat you alive. What are you standing around for? Run, no matter what. Horses, donkeys, and humans can't outrun wolves. Miofa and I were carried away by wolves. Miofa trembled, tightly closed her eyes, and began chanting scriptures. I laughed in anger. What's the use of chanting scriptures now? Do you expect to convert these wolves and make them embrace Buddhism? No. Miofa looked utterly innocent. Whispering softly, this humble monk is reciting the rebirth mantra, giving us a premature deliverance. I clutched my chest and took a deep breath. Before long, we were carried back to the wolf den. The alpha wolf didn't eat us. Instead, it threw us into a nest of grass in the corner of the cave. Hiss. Miofa was dazed from the fall, rubbing his round head. He was just about to sit up. Suddenly, he touched something scalding hot. He instantly screamed and jumped up. Yunling, help me. I followed his terrified gaze. In the grass nest of this wolf den, there was a baby. Moreover, his whole body was burning with fever. I withdrew my hand from the scalding heat and looked up, meeting the eerie green glow of wolf eyes. You want me to save him? The alpha wolf let out a mournful whine, as if in response. I felt the baby's pulse. Thanks to my past life, I even studied medicine to care for the sickly little phoenix. I quickly diagnosed that the child had heat stroke. I gathered several medicinal herbs in the mountain forest, crushed with gravel, then fed into the baby's mouth. After a few days of such care, the illness gradually improved. Apart from nestling against the mother wolf's belly to nurse, the baby would just stare at us with round, bright eyes. Miofa clicked his tongue in amazement. His courage returned, and he babbled playfully with the baby. When the baby cried, he returned it to the mother wolf. The toothless baby, enraged, bit him. The mother wolf turned her head to glance at him. Now, Miofa has finally behaved. I noticed many mosquito bite rashes on the baby's body. Deciding to go all out and being kind, I picked some insect-repelling and calming herbs to make a sachet for them. Then, I froze. The sachet at hand was the one I promised to make for your highness after the autumn hunt that year. In the end, due to the empress's plea, I couldn't give it to you. So I've kept it with me ever since, unconsciously. The image of Ashua's old, worn sachet surfaced in my mind, the newly offered fabrics from the Eastern Palace, clumsy embroidery, and yet, that night on Egret Mountain, Ashua bid farewell to the dead old wolf, stumbling over his words as he spoke of repaying kindness. I suddenly stood up. In the cave, the infant was nestled against the mother wolf's belly, sleeping soundly. I stared blankly at his sleeping face. The contours of his brows and eyes indeed bore traces of the future Eastern Palace's chief covert guard. Miofa peeked her head out. What's wrong? Do you know this kid? I turned back in a daze. Miofa blinking those innocent eyes. What on earth is wrong? The words escaped my lips. Why are your eyes blind? Why, after 9 years apart, had he lost those exquisitely expressive eyes? Miofa flew into a rage. Yunling, you've cursed me. I belatedly realized how inappropriate those words were. Sorry, I had a momentary lapse of judgment. No worries, no worries. Seeing my silence, Miofa waved her hand nonchalantly. This humble monk isn't angry at all. After all, this monk has less than 10 years left to live. I certainly won't live long enough to grow dim-sighted. Haha. I left White Heron Mountain, leaving behind an insect-repelling sachet to calm the mind. 17 years later when we meet again, we'll recognize each other by this token, under the moonlight. I turned my horse around and took one last look at the Indigo Mountain ranges. The wolves howled at night, wailing like lamentations. Ashuo, you must grow up well. 53. In early autumn, we arrived in Nanzhao. The crowd was bustling with activity. Miofa dragged me into the throng to see the excitement. After watching for a while, it turned out to be a Central Plains sojourner who had eloped with the high priest's most beloved youngest daughter. Fortunately, the guards noticed in time and captured the eloping pair. The priest was furious and is now parading that Central Plains man through the streets. I looked up and gasped in shock. The Central Plains man was confined in a prisoner's cart, head bowed yet spine held straight. This is clearly the young Grand Tutor Gu Yen. The identity of the high priest's most beloved youngest daughter is practically on the tip of everyone's tongue. I silently tugged at Miafa's sleeve. Stop staring. We still have important matters to attend to. We came here seeking medicine. Miofa was watching with great interest, but I dragged her out, and she kept looking back reluctantly step by step. I thought expressionlessly, later, when you became the state preceptor, this star-crossed couple, one first entered the palace as a noble consort, the other later became the grand tutor, you'll have plenty to see. I presented the token from the queen and soon met the high priest. His Majesty and Her Highness are willing to exchange 10,000 taels of gold and countless rare treasures for the moon goddess herb. The white-haired high priest half closed his eyes, he shook his head, he only said that the moon god grass was Nanja's treasure, and he couldn't comply with the request. Not even 10,000 taels of gold could sway him. In the previous life, how did those two Central Plains people retrieve it? The high priest saw we weren't moving, he urged us again, you too. Please leave. I felt as if struck by lightning, suddenly realizing something, and looked at Miofa in disbelief. The two Central Plains people mentioned in the rumors, could it possibly be me and Miofa? Miofa noticed my dazed expression, he patted my shoulder to comfort me. What's with that surprised look? Clearly you've never been rejected before. As he spoke, he winked at me, lowering his voice. Let's go first. This monk has an idea. 54, at midnight. I stared at the person whose face was completely concealed by a black cloth. My gaze wandered over that shiny bald head before I reluctantly looked away. Can't bear to look, I said sincerely. The disguise was perfect. But please don't do it again. Miofa frowned. Why do I feel like I'm being insulted? I faked a smile. Someone as clever as you would never think that, right? Miofa finally realized I was being sarcastic. He flew into a rage. After much fuss, they covered my face as well. Miofa admired his handiwork, clapping in satisfaction. Thieves on the move. This thief's operation didn't go smoothly. There are way too many patrolling guards. Miofa and I exchanged glances. Even through the black cloth, we could see the gravity on each other's faces. Just when we were at our wits' end, the crowd suddenly became restless. Miss Feng Jin has run off with that Zhong Yuan man again. Chase them. Go after them. In the chaos, I felt a girl brush past me. Her flowing black hair swept across my cheek. I suddenly looked up and met a pair of melancholy eyes. Though we'd never met, I seemed to recognize who she was. The wonderful method urged, quick, now is the time. A sharp-eyed guard noticed the girl running past me. His eyes widened instantly. Miss Feng Jin is. A small stone flew out from the sleeve, hitting the guard's pressure point to induce sleep. He collapsed, insignificant amidst the chaos. I was pulled into the sacred pavilion by Miofa. Under the moonlight, I took one last glance in the direction where the maiden had fled. I think, if she could successfully elope with Gu Yan, she wouldn't have been sent into the palace as a tribute. Gu Yan wouldn't have entered court service to search for his beloved. Nor would he have gone to extreme lengths to secure a future for her child after discovering her death. Rather than this, it's better to let them have their way now. Beside me, Miofa gasped in shock. He tugged at my sleeve, signaling me to look up. Moonlight grass. The entire body is crystal clear and translucent, like moonlight, but a colorful giant snake. Its tail coiled in circles around this sacred herb. It is the guardian of the moon god's herb. Detected the intrusion of an outsider, hissing with its forked tongue. Golden vertical pupils fixed unblinkingly upon us. It was poised to strike. Miafa's competitive spirit was ignited. Grabbing a stick at hand, he charged forward to fight the giant serpent to the death. Bang! Behind us, the door of the sacred pavilion suddenly opened. Guards swarmed in and surrounded us. The priest was furious, his beard bristling with anger. Catch these two Central Plains thieves. Miofa threw down his staff and shouted, misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. No one paid any attention. Amidst the shoving, something fell out from my sleeve. The priest glanced casually, then his eyes widened in shock. Wait, pointing at the withered red flower on the ground, his voice trembled. What is this? I glanced at him warily and picked up the flower. Zhaodian red. The priest suddenly became agitated. Plains dweller. Isn't it the moon god grass you desire? I'll trade with you. This, just like that. We're trading. What's so special about this flower? The words left my mouth before I realized what I was saying. I knew exactly how I had traveled back through time. This is the flower from ancient Nanjiao texts that can reverse time. The priest gazed longingly at the withered red flower in my palm. I frowned, but it has already withered. The priest shook his head. It's a seed. He traced a faint totem over his chest, his gaze devout. So, it truly exists after all. My temples are throbbing violently. This Zhaodianhong flower. the scabby-headed monk claimed, was a gift from a noble in the palace. And in the entire palace, there's only one Zhaodianhong tree, presented as tribute from Nanzhao the year His Highness ascended the throne. Therefore, over 20 years later, the Zhaodianhong peony presented as tribute by Nanzhao, its flowers carried me back through time, leaving behind its seeds, yet without the seeds in the first place, how could we have grown that future Zhaodianhong peony? Cause, effect. Each and every incident makes my head split with pain, perhaps. A thought gradually becomes clear in my mind: causality is not a straight line, but a circle. Thus, cause and effect can be reversed, a cause can become an effect, and an effect can become a cause, and the past, present, and future exist simultaneously. In this long river of time, countless versions of myself rush about at various points in time. We create cause and effect at the same moment. We are working together to save your highness, but where does the circle begin and end? The laughter of the scabby monk rang in my ears once more, the shadow looming over the skies of bygone days. At this moment, like a reawakened specter, the karmic threads upon you, donor, are interlinked like rings, yet none can tell where they begin. Upon leaving the borders of Nanzhao, the guards escorted the fleeing Feng Jin past us. I looked carefully but didn't see Gu Yan among them. This time, she was the only one caught and brought back. She had failed again. I turned my head to see the maiden bowing her head like a withered flower. Soon, she would be sent as the most beautiful tribute from the southern lands to the imperial city 1,000 miles away. People no longer remembered her original name. All that remained of her was the title of Noble Lady Rong. Such is life, such is death. 55. Traveling day and night, I finally returned before His Highness's 100-day celebration, witnessed with my own eyes as the young prince consumed the moon god herb. I just breathed a sigh of relief. Looking down, I saw this soft white little thing staring at me unblinkingly. My heart melted completely, unable to resist. While the queen wasn't looking, I gently touched his chubby little hand. Immortal being, after giving their instructions, the queen and her maids were about to turn away. I silently withdrew my hand, but the little prince caught my pinky finger. The queen turned her head and caught me red-handed. She smiled gently. May the immortal bestow a courtesy name upon Chi'er, as a blessing. At that moment, I remembered the palace legends. On the little highness's 100th day, a wandering immortal came by and gave him the courtesy name Phoenix. I suddenly began to tremble. The empress gazed at me expectantly while the little highness babbled and reached out his hands toward me. My tears fell. Then, I heard my own voice, soft and hoarse. I said, Phoenix. The phoenix must be reborn from ashes. But you don't need to. Your life has been smooth sailing. You will always be that bright and proud little phoenix. Countless calamities, I'll bear them for you. 56. The next day was the prince's 100-day celebration. The empress prepared the Zhuazhou ceremony in advance and invited me to witness it. And then, I saw, the young lord passed by the dazzling treasures before his eyes. He grabbed hold of my sleeve. He giggled with delight. The queen looked somewhat embarrassed. Immortal one. Chi'er meant no offense. I stared blankly downward, meeting those crescent moon smiling eyes. Like fate's prophecy, the words came true. It's fine, a harmless little episode. The sun grew increasingly intense, and for a moment my consciousness wavered. The sky changed colors, radiant with sunset hues as auspicious clouds rolled. Everyone was startled by this extraordinary celestial phenomenon. They all congratulated the emperor and empress on the throne, saying the young prince must be extraordinary. Miofa put down the pork knuckle, her mouth smeared with a ring of sauce. Yunling, what's wrong with you? You look terrible. The voice snapped me out of my daze. Only then did I realize I was drenched in cold sweat. A faint, chilling voice suddenly echoed by the ear. The causal loop is closed. It's time for you to return. On the high platform, the little prince seemed to sense something and began to cry. Miofa exclaimed in shock. Yunling, your hand. The hands beneath the sleeves were becoming nearly transparent. He tried to grasp me, but his hands passed futilely through my translucent form. He realized I was gradually fading away. Where are you going? Can you take me with you? I smiled bitterly. Perhaps in the future, it won't work out. Miofa urgently asked, then where else can I see you in the future? You promised to take me wine stealing. The words escaped my lips. The palace. I gritted my teeth, my voice torn to shreds by the wind. I'll be back, I swear. But next time we meet, I might not recognize you. You must tell me your name. Miofa shouted at the top of his voice. Okay, this humble monk has prepared wine, waiting for you to drink. But how much longer must this humble monk wait for you? My mind went completely blank. How long will it take? The first time I traveled back, I returned to the 12th year of Jianing, I met the young prince, and I also encountered Miaofa. Before anything could be said, news of his nirvana followed immediately. It suddenly dawned on me. I promised Miaofa our next meeting would be our last in this lifetime. In the next moment, everything before my eyes vanished. In the boundless white void, that celestial voice sounded again, "You saved him once, yet trapped him for a lifetime. Such is fate, such is destiny." I asked, trembling, "Can you tell me why Miaofa went blind?" "His fate was sealed, aging 10 times faster than mortals, because of your single word return. He feared you wouldn't recognize him, traded a pair of eyes to the gods for eternal beauty." In that instant, memories came fluttering before my eyes, finally settling on the dozens of fine wine jars I'd found in the stargazing pavilion. At the time, I still thought, the monk Miaofa appears solemn and proper, yet secretly hoards such an abundance of wine. So, that's how it is, all because of my single word urging return. The endless remaining years, trapped in a corner, in the 12th year of Jianing, within the dimly lit stargazing pavilion, what I thought was our first meeting, in his eyes, was the reunion of long-lost companions. His voice was hoarse as an old man's, yet the corners of his eyes carried a smile. "This humble monk is Miaofa, goddess. How have you been? Would you like some wine?" Just like our first meeting in the 3rd year of Jianing, a young monk rode a donkey, shaking his head and making a ruckus. "Yunling, when will you take this little monk to steal some wine?" Resentment across the way, yet strangers we remain. 57. In late spring of the 3rd year of Jianing, I met the empress and encountered a mischievous young monk named Miaofa. Midsummer night, rescuing a wolf child at Egret Mountain. 17 years later they reunite. His name is Ashuo. Autumn, arriving in Nanzhao, encountering a pair of star-crossed lovers eloping, yet failing, leaving behind flower seeds. In the distant future, Nanzhao celebrates the new emperor's ascension with scarlet palace blooms. Early winter, returning to the palace with moon goddess herbs, the young prince's 100-day celebration, bestowed with the name Phoenix. In the unseen workings of fate, cause and effect have their own ordained course. I raised my eyes to see a golden river flowing slowly before me. I heard the voices, the joys and sorrows, loves and hatreds, songs and cries of countless people. "This river is named Time." My voice grew hoarse. Then, where should I return to? Come from where you came, go to where you go. The cinnabar mole faded, the palace red flowers withered. It's time to go back. The body feels light and hollow, like a drop of water merging into the stream. The next moment, fingertips burn. There's someone who refuses to let you go. He ties you with a red thread, forcing you to stay. The heavenly voice stutters, followed by a sigh. Flowers bloom and wither in their own time. How long can he keep you? I stared blankly downward. A faint red mark encircled the base of the finger. All worldly connections arise and cease, yet there remains an inch of red thread. Want to pull me back to the mortal world? Take me back, to that person's side. 58. Cause and effect continue. A great dream spanning years. As I struggled to open my eyelids, the first light of dawn was breaking. His Highness sat by my bedside, propping his chin with one hand, fast asleep. Just as the celestial voice had foretold, a red thread was tied around the base of my finger, like an earthly bond that cannot be severed. Legend has it that those bound by the red thread of fate shall be connected for a lifetime. I was utterly captivated. Suddenly, His Highness's hoarse voice sounded above me. "The red thread has tied us together. There's no escaping now." He held me tightly in his arms. Something warm trickled into the hollow of my neck. Slowly, I realized they were tears. "Eiling, you don't know how close I've come to madness these days." Only then did I learn that His Highness had broken free from the guards and leaped off the cliff that day. He searched for 3 days before finding me on a large rock by the water's edge. I fell into the water and was washed ashore by the tide. I was unconscious for nearly a year. During this year, the emperor fell seriously ill, and the crown prince acted as regent. His Highness cracked down on noble families and consolidated power. First target the Marquis's household, killing the chicken to scare the monkey. Then with thunderous force, he silenced all dissenting voices in the court. Even without me, he could still do very well. I've always known that. I remembered something. Stumbling towards the side hall, found that goddess painting. This time, I unrolled the scroll. The previously indistinct face of the goddess. Quietly, it became my brows and eyes. The causal loop is so clear. Meeting the prince's astonished gaze, I twitched the corner of my lips, attempting to smile. "Your Highness," I said hoarsely, "I've returned to your past. and met the little you. So early on, our fates were already intertwined. Memories are like fleeting footprints in snow. Where does one begin with such tangled threads? I opened my mouth. In the spring of the third year of Jianing, suddenly, tears streamed down like rain. 59. The emperor passed away on an ordinary winter day. The chief eunuch cried out, "Your Majesty," and dashed his head against the imperial bed, dying on the spot. This was the last trace of bloodshed in the Jianing era. One era came to an end, while another began to unfold. At year's end, it was His Highness's coronation ceremony. As I had wished, he finally stepped into that glorious future that belonged to him. Unblinking, I gazed at the young monarch upon the white jade platform, imperial robes, a 9-tasseled crown, adorned with gold and jade. Each and every piece was personally dressed by me for him. His Highness originally wanted me to serve as the ceremonial officer, but I refused. These days, my episodes of mental distraction are becoming increasingly frequent. That was the sign of my impending departure again. Tianyin is right, Your Highness cannot keep me, amidst the mountains echoing "Long live." I kneel and prostrate myself, chanting, "Long live our emperor, 10,000 years and more." Memories flash by like a revolving lantern. I remember that imperial edict hidden beneath the pillow. Upon it, the imperial brush and golden seal had meticulously inscribed my name. I recall how His Highness, after handling state affairs at midnight, would tiptoe to my bedside. That precious kiss he reverently placed upon my forehead. I never opened my eyes, only my trembling lashes fluttered like butterfly wings. At that moment, I remembered I would soon disappear in the near future. "I only wish for Your Highness to forget me. Long nights bring many dreams." And how sorrowful he was. His Highness let out a sigh. He didn't expose my feigned sleep, only gently tucked the quilt corner for me. I never spoke of it, he never asked. Some words, spanning 2 lifetimes, ultimately remained unspoken. "Do you like it?" "I like the moon." Adoration and admiration. People feign deafness. The moon remains silent. Who knows? Only the wind that swept through the hall that night knew. Long, long ago, the little prince once asked me a question. Will there come a day when the goddess is no more? The child's clear, innocent question still echoes in my ears. Back then, I was left speechless. Now, at last, I have the answer. By then, Your Highness will undoubtedly be renowned throughout the land. Fear not the lack of friends on your journey, for who in this world would not recognize a man of your caliber? So, little prince, don't be afraid. The red thread snapped, slipping from between my fingers in that instant. Once again, I heard that celestial voice. "It's time to return," I whispered softly. "Where will I go?" "The origin is the journey home." The origin. I froze for a moment, then suddenly laughed. All phenomena are empty, yet karma is not. Who am I? I am a nameless beggar from Pomegranate Blossom Lane. I am a mad dog by His Highness's side. I am but a tiny mayfly in this long river of time. 60. The long street lies silent under falling snow. Pomegranate Flower Lane is blanketed in endless white. From the depths of the filthy alleyway, 2 distant barks of a dog echoed. The origin of everything was here, after all. Gazing at the pale moon veiled in snowy mist, I chuckled foolishly. The moon should forever hang in the sky. My lord should sit high upon the clouds, untouched by worldly dust. I yearn for someone, gentle and pure as moonlight. Though I dwell in the mud, I dare not taint him, only wishing him a fulfilled life. The young new emperor ascended the throne amidst cries of "Long live the emperor," ushering in his glorious reign. The spring breeze tower remains adorned with lanterns and decorations, yet the young courtesan Feng Ling is no more. A nameless little beggar, silently perished from hunger on the last snowy night of the old year. This is where the story begins. My stomach growls with hunger. I'm so famished I feel dizzy, but this time, there's no one to share that half of a cold steamed bun with me. But I don't want to die. I want to shout, to cry for help, but no sound comes out. I looked up and asked, "Is this my karma, my destiny?" The heavens cast down their gaze, silent and indifferent. Only the night snow falling on my nose foretells a prosperous year ahead. Everything is over. At this moment, I unexpectedly recalled the night Your Highness stole a kiss from me. At that time, I wanted His Highness to forget me, to spare him grief. But when I was truly nearing death, some improper delusions arose in me. All right. Truth be told, I'm not that magnanimous. I'm a rather petty girl. What I really want to say is, Your Highness, may I ask you not to forget me? It's often said that ghosts who are remembered will follow that person closely without leaving their side. I don't want to die at all. I still want to stay by His Highness's side, to witness his youthful prime, to see his hair turn silver. For many, many years, no matter how he changes, time after time, in my eyes, he remains as when we first met. I am so deeply attached to this mortal world where he exists. At the end of the long street, yet the sound of hooves treading on snow approaches. 12 Chapter Ceremonial robe, 9 tasseled crown. His appearance riding the white horse remained just as in his youth, dashing and handsome, unchanged as ever. He arrived so swiftly, so urgently, I looked up in a daze, uncertain whether all before me was heaven's mercy, a final illusion before death. The next one dragged into the golden hall was the deposed emperor. Songyue hung at the edge of his brow. Like a teardrop, no matter where you are, I will find you. I fell into a warm embrace, a tight hug, as if trying to meld into each other's bones and blood, never to part again in this lifetime. But Ailing, you shouldn't have left me, a hoarse voice sounded by my ear, utterly heart-stirring. In this long river of time, only when you met me did the cause and effect form a closed loop, silent snowflakes fall, forming a vast array. The unalterable cause and effect closed here with a click sound, a single point extends into a line, looping to form a circle, round and round, we return to each other's side. I'm left dizzy by the benevolent fruits fate has bestowed upon me. Between tears and laughter, I find myself at a loss for words. I see, so that's how it is. This is the true ending of the story. The moon sets only to rise again. The lamp rekindles its crimson glow. From this day forth, through blooming springs and moonlit nights, year after year, we shall meet again.